Why, hello everybody, my name is Prunk, and today I'm going to be ranking every single Lorcana First Chapter cards in existence ever. How I'm going to basically be doing this tier list is S tier is going to basically be an auto include in any deck that plays that color. So there's going to be a few of those I feel like, but auto includes are basically just S tier. They're awesome cards that you will always want to play, especially if you're playing that color. A tier is a little bit more of I'm going to probably play 2 or 3 copies, or it doesn't go into every deck, but it's still a really good card that you're going to consider in most builds. B is mostly just, hey, if you're playing that color type, this is going to fit into that slot. C is kind of like a filler slot card, better options usually that you'll probably play. D is stuff that might come up as a niche, but we'll likely not see anything. And finally, we have our F tier, which will never see any kind of competitive play whatsoever, or probably in any deck whatsoever. So there's a lot of cards to go over, and so let's get started because this is going to be a long one. All right, so let's get it started. And I'm just going to grab Ariel with human legs. She is a 4 inkable card. She can sing songs, 2 lore, and she can't sing songs for being a 4 drop. She does have a decent stat line, but because she is basically a vanilla card, and yellow is not really playing many like 4 drops, I just don't think there's really a place for her. She could be useful in some builds, but I just think overall she is a filler card, and there's too many good cards in yellow to really play this Ariel just for the stat line. Cinderella is a card that is comparable to her, with a similar like 2-5 stat line versus 3-4, but she can still sing. In fact, she can counts as a singer for 5, which is really good with Amber Steel. So Ariel is just really a filler card. Really, you can probably play her in the starter deck and eventually pull her out. Decent stats, but just not enough to really do anything extra than just be there until you find better cards. We got Maximus next, the Palace Horse. He is the 4/5 for 5 drop. He's going to be going in a lot of Amber builds. If you are playing Amber, having that big 5 drop is pretty needed at a certain point. You are not going to be able to win every single game by turn 5, and sometimes you just need Max to protect some of your big boards that you've already set up. So Maximus, I think he's definitely going in most builds for Amber. He's definitely not an auto include in any Amber deck because there are different colors and archetypes that you might actually play around. I would probably put him in like low A, high B. I don't see an Amber aggro deck not being in there, but also Amber is only aggro, so I think he's sitting at A tier now, and I think he's going to fall down a little bit down the road. All right, let's see. We got next is Mr. Smee. He is sitting at a 2/5. He is just a vanilla card again, but with his stat line, he's actually pretty good for being a 3 drop, and he does cause some problems. He's not quite just a filler card. He does find niches with Rapunzel, and just being a good stat line on the board, or even for early aggro. He's only questing for 1, but that 5 body with tying it in with Rapunzel, which is probably one of the best cards in the game right now, and I gotta say that Mr. Smee definitely can get into a lot of different builds, even just as a vanilla. So I'm gonna put him at a B tier. He's not. I think he's definitely better than just a standard filler, and he can find places into a lot of decks. Mickey Mouse, that one is just a filler card. He is a 3/3/3/3/3. He does quest for 2 lore, which is kind of nice. So you can play him in a little bit of aggro, but you'll probably find better 3 drops for yourself um, in any kind of aggressive Amber build. From there, we got Minnie Mouse. She is, I think, a filler card. I don't think she's a bad filler card. And if you are playing the Princess deck, where you are playing with like Moana, then she can be B tier. So I am going to actually bump her up for the same reason I actually like Donald Duck in red, because he's just a really good, he's kind of a step up from filler to B. So I'd say Minnie Mouse is definitely bottom B tier, but I don't think she's bad enough. And again, the stat line, 2/3, you can Rapunzel get some trades off and get a heal off with Rapunzel because of that. So I think she does belong in B tier, slightly higher than C tier with our filler cards. Let's see. Let's go Stitch. Stitch is an auto include for any Amber deck, in my opinion. He's just a great 2/2 stat line. Actually, I don't know. Like Stitch, not so much as this Stitch because you don't really want to play too many things. But if you're playing Amber, you're playing some kind of combination of Stitch, I feel like. And plus, he's just too cute to like pass up. I don't know a yellow build that wouldn't run some kind of variation of Stitch, and just he is solid stats. They don't have a 1-3 yet, so I think if you're playing Amber, you're pretty much auto including Stitch. I think he could be bottom A. I could probably change S to A. I could be convinced either way, but I think that you're going to be including him. Yeah, maybe not a four of. You know what? I think with my own logic, I think he's just going to go as an A tier because you are not in every deck. You're not going to be playing four copies of him. Just and only an aggro, which is arguably the best way to play it. But you're not. You may not even need like those four because if you're playing purple, you're probably not including um, him at all because you're playing Lilos and a bunch of other stuff. But I think A tier is fine for Little Stitch. What is it? We have forgotten you. Whatever is it called? You have forgotten me. This card's interesting. I often see it as ink for most players. However, it can be brutal at the wrong time. I was actually playing at a locals today, and this card says each opponent chooses and discards two cards. So I think that you have forgotten me. Um, I don't think it's not a filler card by any means. It definitely sees a lot of play, but it's often used as inking. I gotta go with some builds. I don't think it's a necessary card, but it's definitely a step up from filler because it can be brutally devastating. It is situational, and is that better than a filler? I don't know. I think B tier for You Forgotten Me, just forcing somebody to discard, especially like in late game when you are kind of like near the end of your resources, I think can be really brutal. If you are already ahead, maybe if you're playing Steel along with this and you have some good combos going off, but I think B is a good place for You Have Forgotten Me. It's about time. This or let it go. Was it just in time? Sorry. You may play a character with 5 costs earned for free. This is going in a lot of the builds, but I would still keep this card in B tier. I don't think it's that great. I know this was like a $10 card at some point, and as good as it can be, it's not that amazing. At best case scenario, you're often just getting out Big Stitch a turn early, or 2 turns early, which can be really good, and it is really difficult to deal with. But you are burning 2 cards from your hand and resources. So, and if they will often might not have a response the next turn on turn 4, but on turn 5, most players will have a way to deal with Rockstar Stitch. So because of that, I think I'm putting him in B tier. I don't see this in every deck as well. Not many deck lists are running this. It's a great individual card on paper, but there is a lot of drawbacks. You are basically going -1 to get a card onto the field. So with that, it's just not going in every build. Cinderella. This one, let's see. This is Gentle and Kind, the 2/5 Cinderella. Uh, she's a filler card as well. She kind of it's the argument with Ariel. I think she's a better version of Ariel. I would rather play Ariel than I'm sorry. I would rather play Cinderella more than Ariel. They both quest for 2, but Cinderella can heal. She can sing. She's 4, and I actually like the 5 stat line in Amber a lot better. So we're gonna put her above Ariel for C tier. Um, let's see. Healing. What's it called? Healing Glow. Remove 2 damage for chosen character for a 1 inkable. It's extremely situational right now, but I don't think this card would ever see play. This is a starter deck card that might play, but you're using this as ink. You're going minus just to kind of heal up a character. No major benefits really out of it. I don't think this will ever see competitive play until we have some kind of healing deck that or healing focused deck that gives you benefits when characters are healed. So until then, it's never seeing actual competitive play. Musketeer Goofy. So Goofy the Musketeer, he is interesting. I tried really making a Musketeer style deck work. When you play this character, you can remove 2 damage from each of your Musketeers. They all have heavy stat lines. I feel like there can be a good healing Rapunzel build with all the Musketeers, but it just doesn't quite work. Maximus is just a better card all around, in my opinion, both in the stat line being a 4/5. And I don't think his second effect will really ever come up because all the Musketeers are high tier or high ink costing cards. So I think he's just extremely situational. He can fit into a deck. There is a place for him possibly, but I don't think it's that great. Lantern. This is definitely an A tier card. I do not think this is S. It is great in aggro if you're playing two of and you see this in your opening hand. I don't like. I don't. I think playing this card at 4 is completely wrong. I see a lot of deck lists that have this card at 2, or I'm sorry, at 4, and I want a mulligan for this card. I'll probably hard mulligan for this card, just make sure I have a Lilo, a Simba, and then everything else going for Lantern because it is extremely strong to have in your open hand. But I have won so many games against Amber because they just top deck 3 lanterns and can't do anything. So I think this card is great in most builds, but I do not think it's a 4 of, and I do not think it's an auto include. What's the I see like some of these even niche ones. Ursula's Shell Necklace. Whenever you play a song, you may pay a 1 to draw a card. I think there will be a place for this card. I do. We don't have enough support for songs. We don't have enough songs in the game yet. But Ursula's Shell Necklace, this is never seen play right now. It's just not there yet. It's a really bad rare to find in a pack. Um, it's not seen play at all whatsoever right now. It will. I think it will be a great card maybe in like a set or two. We still haven't seen everything for the next set, but it's just not worth it yet. Dingle Hopper, remove 1 damage from chosen character. This is a starter deck card. It is a filler card. It is actually not a bad starter deck card because you can get some favorable trades. You get this with Steel, and so you can do this with like Prince Eric, who's taken a hit or something from like the other decks, Olaf or something. So it can be good. I've seen it work. It's definitely a filler card. You will probably cut this out. Maybe it should go to situational, but this is definitely a starter deck card, and it's great in that starter deck, but you will want to replace it pretty quickly, I think. What's going on? Part of your world. It is a song. Return a character from your discard to your hand. This is an interesting one. I will often see this as a one of, just because people want to play this in Amber so that we can get an extra song. But I don't think Hades is just a better version of this in my opinion because you got a stat line with him, and sometimes you just need a better turn 4 play versus this. If this card was inkable, I think it would be a lot better. I'm gonna put this as a. I don't think it's a filler necessarily because it is a rare and you're probably not gonna do it. But it's just it might be a good to kind of slot into your aerial deck if you're playing like the good aerials. But otherwise, I think it sits firmly in a C tier. Calm your emotions. Chosen character gets -2. This is extremely situational. I don't think this is ever going to really see big play, but I can make an argument for it. Just because a lot of yellow cards don't have favorable attack lines. So, being the 1 ink, I think there could be a spot for this. I think I'm lying to myself more realistically. I think this is definitely. I'm never putting this in my deck. I just. Amber has too many good 1 drops. And no matter what you're combining it with, I don't think. Am I lying to myself? I think I want to put it in D tier, but I don't think you're ever going to really play that card. It's going to sit in your starter deck, and that's about it. Let's see let's go to Moan next. When you play this character, you remove 1 damage from your chosen character. It's another 1 drop, but it is extremely situational. It's not really going to see the play yet. Um, it Having the little bit of healing could be kind of nice, but it's only healing 1 damage as well. I think you could play it in a couple builds and be fine. So I'm going to say extremely situational. It's not quite never see play because that little bit of healing could work. And again, when healing card decks start becoming a bigger thing, which I think Amber will be really fun with that kind of diversity. I think they need something to be like, oh, when you heal a character and get people to force to want to play some of these healing cards, then it will be a lot better. But as we said at set 1, he's definitely a D tier card. Surfer Stitch. When you play this character, if you have 2 or more characters, you may draw 2 cards. This is. I'm going to stick with A tier still. Um, it's not going in every deck. He's got a heavy cost of ink at 7, and he's not shiftable. So, like, you are committing a lot of resources for a pretty aggressive deck. into a 7 drop to make sure you get their 2 lore. He is a great card to end out the game, being extremely tough to deal with. But I can't put him in a S tier. I don't think he's an auto include. You might need the drawing, but if you're playing steel, then you don't quite need that draw power. If you're playing a purple with the other build, then you don't. Again, you have plenty of draw power there. Like the only time I can really see this being in a complete auto include is if you're playing maybe blue, just having that high ramp. But I think he's going in most builds. I just don't think he's S tier. Rockstar Stitch. This would have been S tier if you asked me 3 weeks ago, but everyone with aggro has been heavily cutting this card out more now. I think it has fallen. It's still a great shift. It's going in like most of the builds. It's definitely an A tier card, but I don't think this is S tier anymore like I thought it would be. Be Our Guest. It is a great 2-cost song. It is a searcher. I I fluctuate with this. So I know a lot of players don't really want to see too many of these, but it is searching for exactly the card you want. You are searching for your Simba, you're searching for your Rapunzel. Just being able to look at the top 4 cards in your deck. I like playing these kind of searching cards more than anybody. It is inkable for when you don't need it. I think this is our first S tier card. It's kind of anticlimactic because it's not that great, and this might be a little controversial. It's going in most builds for sure. I think it's an auto include for almost any a like I think it's for any Amber deck. I think this is a great searching card. It is a song, so you can play it. So if you have like just let's say Minnie Mouse out, you can play it for free. Um, you're gonna be playing a lot of low cost cards. So I think Be Our Guest is definitely a good card to kind of include into almost any Amber deck. I think that said it right there though. It's the keyword. It's almost playing this at a 4 copy, and that makes me kind of hesitate with it. I think bottom S tier, high A tier is a good spot for it, but I'm going to keep it at S tier just so we have something on that line at the moment. I think you can make an argument that this card could be more important than the Stitches, just because this is always getting you to search out for your Lilos and everything else that you might need, and because you're playing those low cost cards, and it is a low cost card, you're just digging through your deck to grab the exact card you need. So I think I'm gonna stick with A tier or S tier for sure. Kuna Matata, heal 3, was it heal 3 damage for each of your characters? It can be good. I am seeing a little bit of this playing with Ariel and stuff, just like as a one-off and stuff like that. It's again when healing cards do come in, it's a little bit more, but I think otherwise it's just a filler card in the meantime until people get the exact cards, everything that they want. So nothing too great. Uh, Pumbaa is a vanilla. Oh, is he at Pumbaa? What's his actual name? Yeah, something Warthog. He is a 3/5 stat line. So vanilla Cinderella, no effect. Questing for 1. I don't think he'll ever actually see any play. That 3/5 stat line. We've talked about the bigger cards, but I don't think you're going to be playing this in any kind of build. He's a weird stats, doesn't quest for much, and that's what Amber wants more than anything. So I think he's never gonna see actual play. I'm gonna put him in F tier. Just he's a very awkward number, awkward stats, like really good stat line. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to put this in my Amber deck. Simba. Simba is actually I think A tier. Or I'm sorry, S tier. He is. You're basically playing 4 copies of this in any almost. I'm pretty sure in any Amber deck that I can think of, I'm playing 4 copies of Simba because I'm dropping Lilo, dropping Simba. I want to see them in my opening hand. That card is definitely S tier in my opinion for only a 2 drop. With that said, Lilo is also S tier. You're playing this in any. If you are playing Amber, you're playing 4 copies of Lilo. There's no excuse for it. She's questing for 2. This is the deck's bread and butter. Any Amber player will think. I think will agree with this, but Lilo is a 4. You're playing 4 copies of Lilo in every Amber deck. Period. Hey Hey is situational. He's kind of a filler. He does give some support, and he does go into some builds. Maybe high C or low B is a good place for Hey Hey. When he quests, he gives your people an extra attack that can help like give you some favorable trades with like Little Stitch. I think C is just fine. He was good for the first few weeks. I don't see him in any builds anymore, and that's just because people have him. or have more cards now to play with. So I don't think Hey Hey is going to see anything bad. I don't think he's bad. He's definitely situational, but he's a filler, and he's always been a filler. Hades. Amber doesn't always need to go for the graveyard, and you don't always need those big recursions. He is probably a 2 of in most decks, but he's definitely not an auto include in anything with Amber, I think. I There are some better shift targets if you're playing like the villain build than you're playing with him, and you could arguably just play the song part of your world to get that card, and he's the exact same effect. But I do think he is better than that, just because of that stat line. 4 is a good number for him. I wish he was inkable. I'd rather him been a 5 and then be inkable and keep the same stats or something. In my opinion, I think that would have been better. But I think he goes in some builds. I think B is solid. Sebastian. Whew. All right, so Sebastian right now, this one is he sings for 4. He can sing for 4 songs. That is not good. You need him to sing at 5. He could have had like it. Everyone's playing Steel with Amber. It's just the best combination. I don't think there's any really good 4 songs either that you would probably play if you're playing Amber Blue, Amber Steel. Let's see, like you could play. If you're playing purple, then you're getting draws off with him, which is kind of good with friends on the other side. But otherwise, there's just better cards to fit into that slot. Just to have him, he's not even that good of a stat line for a 2-2. Like maybe if he was a 2-3, he'd be better. But Sebastian, I'm sorry, man, you are never going to see actual competitive play. Ariel, this is an auto include. If you're playing yellow and you're playing steel, which is the best deck right now, you're playing 4 copies of. Even if you're not and you're just playing a bunch of songs, like if you're playing purple, you're probably going to want to play Ariel because you're going to get somewhat draw. If you're playing yellow, then getting to some of your stuff is a little bit harder. So I don't think. Hmm, I want to put her. I guess I want to put her in S tier only because of steel, comboing it with steel. But and with that said, you're not putting auto including 4 copies of her if you're playing purple. Uh, Green definitely not. Red definitely not. Uh, Blue possibly just because of Let It Go. Uh, yeah, she's. I think A tier. You're gonna be playing her in most builds, but I don't think you're playing auto include 4 in every single deck that she would be in. So with that said, I think I wanted to jump to S tier almost immediately, but after thinking about it, I don't think she's quite there. Other Max. This one is the bad Max. I don't remember its effect. Let me look at it. It is when you play this character, and chosen character gets -2. He has a 3-drop, but he's a filler card. You're playing this in your starter deck. That's about it. Moana, the princess. So if you're playing princess build and you're playing a little bit of filler starter deck stuff, she is great. But there are not enough good princesses. You really want to place Amber Blue if you want to make a princess deck. And I think there are some places to play with this. I have seen a really cool Amber Steel or Amber Blue item deck with Ariel and comboing out with Moana, and it was cool as hell. I don't know how consistent it is, but yeah. But she's a B tier card. Like you can get her in a bit. She is a key piece for any princess deck. So she is going to be in a few different builds. But otherwise, I think solid B. I don't really think much more. We're running out of yellow cards, and this thing is not pretty. Hades, Boss Hades, big villain Hades, promo card Hades. Where are you? You're not even on my Dreamborn thing. Here you go. Hades, King of Olympus. I love this card. It is. It is not. It's. I don't. It's a C tier card in my opinion. Like you want to play this if you are playing a villain build, and in my experience, I think Amber, Purple, Amber, yeah, what is it called? Amethyst is definitely a cool villain build. So you can put him in and you can splash it in and have a cool villain deck. And I'm pretty sure you could probably combo it with a Scar. I really want to build the villains is like my next experimental deck to try and test out. So I think he can definitely. He's a good solid card, but he is. We need more villains, and that's really where that it comes through. But playing this with you can play this in purple because you have a bunch of Maleficents. You can play this in blue. You got Tamatoas, and you got more Maleficents, and you have other Hades. Um, You can play this in purple. Red there's a bunch of scars which are but you know that could be kind of cool. So I just think there's a lot of places for this Hades, and he has a shift because you can shift down from other yellow. I think he's just solid B tier. And we're missing. Where are you at, LeFou? LeFou is great aggro. I don't think I've ever seen him combo his effects work with a Gaston, but he is in most build or some of the builds. Just being able to quest for 2 lore is really solid. It's kind of hard to complain about that. Like, yeah, he's just good. Where the heck is Rapunzel? Am I blind? There's no Rapunzel? No, here's Eric and Rapunzel. We'll put them here for now. All right, so Rapunzel is an auto include. If you can get 4 copies of her at $50 each, jump on it. She is really good. She is healing. She is draw. She is great stat line. She's 2 lore. If you're playing any Amber deck, I don't see a reason why you would not play 4 copies of Rapunzel. That's just insane. Prince Philip is a filler card. Done. Like, I think that's all the yellows. Green, purple, as far as I can see, because it's late at night and I'm sleepy. So this is my yellow build right now. We have gone through kind of all the ambers. I think this is a good spot. We are going to work on some of these other colors though, and this is, like I said, this is going to be a long video. I'm going to film this in multiple paces, I'm pretty sure. All right, so let's move on to red. This is the second time I'm doing this because apparently my audio cut off and I did the entire red tier list without audio. Fun. All right, anyway. So we're going to do this, hopefully not run out of audio, I guess. But I'm going to kind of play this out. It's going to not go by card a little bit. It's just kind of what we put things in a list. So as far as S tiers and auto includes, I'm putting in Aladdin for sure. Small Aladdin Street Rat is just one of the better cards that you're probably going to place into literally every red deck you're playing. I think he is a good standstill. I mean, he's only a 2/2 stat line, but the -1 lore is helpful against aggro, and because of his low cost, you are probably going to be playing Big Aladdin. So let's talk about Big Aladdin Outlaw, Heroic Outlaw. I'm putting this in A tier only because you're not playing 4 copies and he's not an auto include in every red deck. You probably play Splashing Men as like a 1 or 2 of. You might be throwing 3 Aladdins in. But Heroic Outlaw is not necessarily S tier because it's not an auto include in every red deck. If you're not playing Big Aladdin or Little Aladdin, you're probably not playing Big Aladdin. But I feel like if you're not playing at least a couple copies of Small Aladdin, Street Rat version, then Heroic Outlaw is just not needed for really any of the decks or builds that you're trying to make. So for that reasons, I have Street Rat in S tier, Heroic Outlaw in A tier. Maui is a 4 of auto include in any Ruby deck, period. I can't think of situations where you would not want this card. It's got a phenomenal stat line. 6 attack kills basically everything in the game. I don't think there's any. The only thing it doesn't hit on summon is Surfer Stitch. But otherwise, this card just literally outs every other character on the field. And Ursula. I'm sorry, yeah. So Ursula. So 2 cards that this card does not out. But otherwise, it is a huge stat line. And the funny thing is, because he has 5 defense, he's probably surviving the initial hit anyways, which means he's a problem card for your opponent to deal with on top of that. So, like, having this as a rush is insanely good. It outclasses basically every other rush card in red. It's an auto include in any Ruby deck, period. Next, I'm going to go with Be Prepared. It is Dark Hole. It is your board wipe. It is everything you need in Ruby. It is the only mass board wipe in the game, and it's solid. You're playing this as 4 copies in every deck list. I don't know. Even like mine that I'm playing like heavy 5-drops into, I'm still playing 4 copies of this because sometimes you just need that big board wipe. So sometimes you're putting in extra stuff, or you're drawing your 1-drop cards late game and inking them to be able to play Be Prepared. You can sing it with Aladdin as well, which is nice, but probably not optimal or not used that often. But Be Prepared is a 4 of in every deck. It is S tier, period. Dragonfire is my other S tier card, and that is, again, just another auto include. It is removal at its cleanest. It's not going into an inkwell. It's not going in the hand. It is straight going into the discard pile, and as of right now, we don't have too many things that are interacting with the discard pile. So banish that card. Dragon's Fire is an auto include of 4 in every Ruby deck, period. From here, we got some other cards that I think are going to be a little controversial. So I think Gaston is A tier. I don't think you are playing 4 copies of him in every Ruby deck. I'm actually only playing 3 myself, and that might be a little bit too heavy. I'm thinking about dropping him down to 2 myself, just to kind of get that late game stuff. And I'm playing Emerald Ruby mostly, but even my Amber and Amethyst deck, or sorry, Ruby Amethyst deck, I don't think playing 4 of him is necessary. So I think 3 is the perfect number for him, and he's not in every deck. He's just going to be that big, heavy aggro target. He's got a great stat line, but the fact that holds him back is that it has to be preemptive. If you do not go first, then Gaston is a significantly worse card because like let's say we're facing Steel Amber, they're playing turn 1 Lilo, turn 2 I play Tibbs, turn 3 they play Simba, turn 4 and then Quest for Lilo, and then my turn 2 I play out into Gaston. I still can't do anything until at least turn 3, and at that point, Lilo is likely quested for 4 already, and it's already been 2 turns. So, because he doesn't have Rush, he could be bad, but if that whole situation is reversed, then Gaston does become a lot better. So I can play Tibbs on turn 1. They play their Lilo, so now they're a little bit more afraid to actually quest with Lilo. I put down turn 2 Gaston and preemptive expectation to them playing their Simba. So it just turns the game around. He is a situational S tier, in my opinion, but otherwise, in general, I think he's just A tier where he belongs. From there, Maleficent Dragon. I kind of debated between S and A tier, and ultimately what stopped me from putting him in S tier is the fact that I don't run it in my Ruby Emerald deck because I can never get that much ink. If you're comboing it with Amber, you're never going to have that much ink either. If you're comboing it with Steel, you might get that much ink, but really, this is going to be played in blue, and it's going to be played in purple. And that's really about it. So I think only hitting 2 of the 5 art ink types, it's a solid A tier card. It is a powerhouse when it comes out. It is a great top deck when you need it. But he's not an auto-include in every deck list, and which is kind of surprising because I honestly thought it would be. If you looked at some of my early videos of Ruby stuff, I thought it was just an auto-include. But I think in every deck type, I think it's solid at A. From here, we got Sergeant Tibbs, just another generic 2-cost. I think is going to go in a lot of builds, but I kind of debate between A and B tier with a lot of the 2/2s. Ruby has other options for your 1-drops, so he's not as important, but if you're combining it with just other cards and just having that early game field presence, I think a lot of the 2/2s just go into most builds. And I'm going to put him in A tier as well. Goofy. So this Goofy right here, I think is a pretty clean B. The reason being he is a 3/4 stat line, and comparatively, that is a very difficult card to get out, or to get out over, but his 3 attack is unnecessary because you're often not attacking with your evasive units. You're just questing in for 2. So he's there as kind of a boulder, but he's not quite good enough and to be played in most builds. I think he's more of a situational card, possibly filler status. I do think he has a place. He definitely has a place in my green deck. He has a place in Amber decks, or Amethyst deck. If you're playing heavy with blue, then I think he can find his way in there as well. So I think he's a slight step up, but he's going to sit at the bottom of B tier for me. Goofy is just really great, but it's not for everybody, and it's not in most decks. He's mostly a filler card, in my opinion, and I would probably cut him in certain decks as well. Same thing with LeFou. So this LeFou gives them everybody Reckless, or one character Reckless. Can't quest the turn. I'm sorry. Ready the chosen character. I got it mixed up. So when you play this character, Ready chosen character, he is really good to combo with Big Aladdin, Heroic Outlaw. He is good to kind of help protect your cards on the field, maybe get an extra swing with Maui, maybe a quest, and then just protect your other characters. So he's solid. You're going to find him in some of the builds, but I don't think he's a necessary staple in any of the decks. I think most decks will function just fine without LeFou. He's just not a staple in anything. He's a very situational card, and because of that, I am actually going to put him in, I think, D tier. I know he's played in a lot of deck lists, but because he's such a situational card, he just doesn't quite fit the niche of a lot of decks in building. And I think if you're playing like Mulan, you would find him useful, and I think if you're playing like that Princess engine, but otherwise, I think D to C tier is appropriate for him. Shield of Valor. This is definitely a B card. It's good in some builds. It's horrible in others. You're not always going to want to see this. It's often a 2 of in most decks. just because you don't really want to play a bunch of the same item cards in any of them. So it can be a little bit situational at times. It's definitely, I think honestly, I need to flip D and C tier. Maybe we should flip those, the situationals to fillers. But I think extremely situational sets this up. So I think that that Shield of Valor is good in a lot of different builds, but you're only playing 2 copies of it, so it's going to sit in B tier. I think is fine. Mickey Mouse, Brave Tailor. This one's probably controversial. So I have said it before. I like Pongo significantly better than these cards, and I want to compare these two just in case you haven't seen the argument. The argument for Pongo is he comes out on turn 4 versus turn 8, and the fact he quests for 2, you will likely get more lore out of Pongo on turn 4 than you would on turn 8 with Mickey, because if you quest for Mickey once, that gives you your 4 lore, sure, but he is an he is an auto out. If I'm playing Ruby, if I'm playing any kind of removal source, that Mickey Mouse is dying, and that is an auto target button. Mickey should just say, hey, your opponent plays a removal spell or you gain 4 lore. Like, that is basically what the Mickey Mouse does. When you're comparing that to Pongo, Pongo doesn't come off as an immediate threat on turn 4. Most people don't care about him. He is something that people feel bad if they have to use their removal card in late games to clear out Pongo. So it is more satisfying to be able to out a Pongo than it is a Mickey Mouse. So Mickey, unfortunately, I think it's going to go in some builds, but I think I'm going to put him in high C tier. He's just not. He's kind of a filler in legendary card, where he'll fill up that slot if you have him, but he's not that great because he is going to be auto-targeted for removal spells, whereas somebody like Pongo, you will see this in most builds, and Pongo is just going to be a better version of Mickey Mouse. He comes out sooner. He's going to probably quest for at least 4 before they manage to out-remove him, and you don't have to spend your entire turn to play 1 card versus Mickey Mouse. Rapunzel's a great filler card. She was actually really strong in my deck for a while, just because I didn't have a better option. She does quest for 2. She's got good stat lines. She even removes a lore, which is kind of cool. But overall, she will be replaced. I think that she will be better with Princess decks coming out, and I think there can be a good case for Mulan, Princess, like Amber, and Amber, Ruby, Princess deck, I think can happen. But otherwise, she is just a filler card as she stands by herself. She's a good filler card, and if you are running her in your main deck, don't feel bad. It's definitely a great card. So I think that we're just going to put her in C. From there, we got Donald Duck. Donald Duck is a filler card, but he was a great filler card for me. Donald is just having the 2/3 stat line and bringing him off on turn 2 is really good. He can be a problem card for steel players to kind of deal with unless they have Smash. But then if you have Smash, you're like, do I really want to waste Smash on a Donald Duck? And most of the time the answer is no. So he just kind of pokes at the 2/2s. He maybe quests for 2 lore before they actually decide to out him or something. They have to waste a Captain Hook or something to kind of clear it out. And a lot of people just don't want to waste their resource removal for a vanilla card. And so he's kind of that underdog in the game. So I think he's sitting comfortably at a C tier. Minnie Mouse is kind of going to be in that same boat. If you're just playing with mostly commons and stuff, 1/3s are pretty strong, but red doesn't have much to really support the weaker cards unless you are playing some really bad versions cards, which we'll get to those in a bit. But Minnie Mouse, I think, is definitely a filler. Having a 1/3 body versus the 2/2, that is personal preference, I think. I think a lot of them can be interchangeable. But I don't think Ruby supports Minnie as well as other 1/3s like Olaf might. So because of that, I think sitting her at a C tier is totally fine. Scar is never going to see play. I want to talk about Scar, and I want to talk about this other Scar too. So Scar is a 5/4 Scar Fiery Usurper. First off, really cool artwork. I love it. Why is this a vanilla card? Like this is such a cool looking card. Like, make it do something cool. I would have loved for this. And the funny thing is, I pull these holos like all the time. It's a common, and I really want this card to be good, but he's not. But you have to kind of talk about the shift Scar. So Scar, what is it called? Shameless Firebrand. Shift 6. When you play this character, ready your characters with 3 cost or less. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. So
I don't think there's really a place right now for either of these scars in the game. Ruby decks are not playing a lot of 3 costs that are going to be heavy questing or having done other stuff. Even if they are like, let's say you play that and you get Gaston. Gaston survived a trade with Olaf, and then now you can go and trade him for Cusco. Hopefully, that might be your best play for turn 6. Uh, it's just not. He shouldn't see play right now. There's not enough red villains to make it worthwhile. I don't think it combos well with other decks, so because of that, it's an F tier. From there, we got Captain. This horse, he is a filler card. If you have nothing better, then sure, just slot him in. Having a big stat line, 6'5". Playing this card in a draft format actually won me a couple games because they could not out it. It just heavy stats is sometimes just good. It's just a vanilla card. It's nothing too special. I don't think you'll ever really put him into anything specific, but it is a decent enough card until you get better options for late game boss cards. Same thing with Stitch, only Stitch is a little bit more situational, and this is I feel like I need to add another tier, but I'm sticking to this. I'm going to complain about it now, but it's too late. I've invested at least an hour into this video, so we're sticking with my tier list. But I think, or my terms for my tiers. So Stitch is a 4/6 who quests for 3. He is a great boss card, and actually I think he can go up to B tier. He is a step up from fillers. He can be a late game closer until you get some of your better options. So hence why he's probably a filler. But I think there can be an argument to play like, hey, look, I like this card over Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse could be. I think these guys can be kind of interchanged a little bit just because they have a very similar stat line to each other. Stitch arguably a little bit better stats. 4/6 I think is more valuable than 5/5 when you're trying to quest for big stuff. So, and he's going to trade with a lot of things. So I think he can be used in some builds. He's definitely a filler card. He's a rare, which is shocking because I don't think he's a pretty bad rare. Uh, but I think overall the fact that he's inkable does make him play and can see play. TKA, or I'm sorry, Moana, the one that banishes TKA, this will never see play. Even in princess decks, like it's such a heavy cost. She's a 6-drop, right? TKA, yeah, or 5-drop. Whenever you play this character, you may banish chosen character named TKA. Yeah, just she's a princess, so maybe combo with Mulan and Rapunzel and princess decks. Nobody's playing TKA in any deck right now. I don't understand why this card was printed. It's such a specific thing. It's F. Let's go with where is he? Tigger. T-I double go. This is similar to Pongo. It's similar to Mickey Mouse. However, I'm throwing him in D tier. The reason being is, again, it's got the heavy stat line, which is fine. But if they're evasive, you don't really need them to have a big stat line other than just the defense. So, like, having the 4/4 wall on turn, dropping this guy on turn 6 so that way he can quest for 2 next turn, and then just not die for a few turns, it can close out games, but it's so slow. I think if you're going full evasive deck, then yeah, you're probably going to splash him in. But at the same time, I don't really want to play this card as ink or put this card into my deck just to be ink, and I think that's all he'll end up being. Rescue Apple and Sword of Truth, they are never going to see play as of right now. Maybe Apple is situational, but as of right now, I don't think that we'll see any kind of play because we're not really focused on princesses and we're not really focused on villains. They do the same thing. Sword of Truth is banish this card, banish a chosen villain. Poison Apple, banish this item. Exert character. If it's a princess, then banish her instead. They're not inkable, so they're very situational cards that are dead draws against probably 60% of the decks you play and 80% of the cards you'll see against. So because of that, the fact they have to be banished, if they were once per turn, like kind of effects, and maybe they costed something less to put out on the field, and then they costed 4 to do it, and you can do it every turn, they would definitely see play in that case. But as they stand right now, they are probably some of the worst cards right now. Tangle, each opponent loses 1 lore. It's a situational card. It is inkable, and that's the only reason it's saving grace. And if you are going to be playing a lot of multiplayer matches, and you're going into multiplayer matches with a strategy of I want to mess with everybody, then Tangle can be good. But otherwise, you should not be playing this card in your deck. It is inkable. That is the only saving grace and the reason why it's extremely situational. Same thing with he's got a sword. First off, I love the quote. He's got a sword. We all got swords. because it's a great card. It is definitely a situational. If you're playing with Minnie Mouse, then maybe better. If you're playing this in, I don't really know when you, like if you're playing red blue, I can see this card working because they have a lot of like heavy defense cards or just low stat things that are going to be on the field. So he's got a sword could see play. It's definitely a situational card. I don't think it won't ever see play. I think the one of is just like getting a couple of these is fine. Uh, it's a step down from filler for sure though. This is stuff that's coming in your starter deck. You will probably replace, but you might not replace it too often, or right away at least. We got another Captain Hook. Red Captain Hook, where are you at? Captain Hook, this is a rush. It's set cost for 7. He has a 5/5, so really big stat line. While this character is exerted, opposing characters with evasive gain reckless. They have to attack. So this is anti-Peter Pan to its fullest. Uh, he is decent. It's definitely a situational card. When evasive targets become more of a thing, I think this card can be good. But having the 5/5 rush, Maui is just overall better card. And yeah, he can quest for 2, but you're probably using this guy as removal since he has rush, and he's probably going to die to most things that you would summon him off. You might be able to get a hit off if you're playing against me with like my Emerald deck. Then maybe that's going to force like a Tinkerbell to hit this guy. But otherwise, I think he's at a solid D tier card. Fan the Flames. This is the ready chosen character. They can't quest. It's a one of. It doesn't really do anything to bring your game. It's just kind of going -1. I don't think this card should ever see play. TKA. So this is the Moana's hate. It has Reckless. What would make this card significantly better is if it had Rush instead of Reckless, or give them both. Again, it's just a weaker version of Maui. There's no reason to play this in anything. I think Gaston outclasses it. I think that Maui outclasses it. And I think Peter Pan outclasses it too. But with that said, Peter Pan is probably a C tier card. He's more of a filler slot until you get your Mauis. And he does have Rush, which is really great. And there is an argument to play him over Gaston because on your turn 3, you can out the Simba with him. But I just don't. He sometimes comes out a little too late, and he's not inkable. It's the biggest thing that hurts this card. If he was inkable, then he would be 100% better than Gaston. But because he's not, it's sometimes feels bad to play this in your hand, and sometimes you just need to ink your Gastons. So I think that he is a solid C card. I think there is an argument that he could be better than Gaston in some cases. But overall, I'm sorry, Peter Pan, you're going to C tier. Elsa. So Red Elsa. First off, I love the artwork. That's where this stops. Like, Anna does not have enough benefit to play her, and there's not even a red Anna to combo this with, so you have to play, I think, purple or blue versions of. I think you have to play purple with her. So I like Elsa. Which one is it? I can't even find her on the Dreamborn. Elsa, where are you at? Okay, yeah. So whenever you play a character named Anna, ready this character can't quest. Like, why? I don't. I say that like, if how many times are you gonna play Anna in a turn? You're gonna quest for 1, maybe 2. Like, that's really what would have made this card better, is if you could have quest, if you can just spam out Annas every turn, maybe something similar to what Ariel does in blue. So she doesn't quest for much. She's got a stat line for a 3/4, but realistically, she's basically just a vanilla 4-drop. She is inkable, but I don't think she's even situational. I think she just doesn't see play. Maybe some Amethyst Ruby decks can get her out, but there are better options overall for a 4-drop. Abu. So I love Abu. He's adorable little monkey, and he does quest for 2, so he can be there for like more aggressive cards. I think he's more situational though. His stats at a 3/2 and just being vanilla that quest for 2 is not good. He's gonna probably get hit by cannons. He's probably gonna get traded with a Tibbs. Like, he can be situational if you're playing that aggro Ruby deck, but overall, he doesn't really advance your game state very well. He does not set up a good field presence. He is there to hopefully quest you for 2 extra lore, if you're lucky. There might be a spot for him in it's D or F tier. I think there can be a spot for him somewhere, and that's why I think he's extremely situational, and he's going in D tier. We are almost done. I need a drink so badly, but I'm lazy and I don't want to get up until I'm done with this. Are you guys good like that? Just keep talking, and then your mouth dries up, and then you refuse to drink until you're done with the project. So we're at cut to the chase, is what you were saying. Chosen character gains rush this turn. They can challenge the turn they're played. So it is inkable, which makes this card a lot better. But a lot of your cards that you're going to play this on are pretty heavy ink costing cards, anyways. A lot of them will have rush, and you're probably not going to be able to play this the same turn you play your Big Aladdin. You're not going to be able to play this the same turn you play Maleficent Dragon or Stitch, or any card that you'd actually want to give rush is probably not getting rush on the same turn. If this was a 1 cost, then it'd be a lot better, but I don't think this can ever really see play as it stands. Finally, we got Mulan. Mulan is, I think, an extremely situational card. It goes into one deck, and that is a princess spamming deck. But her stat line actually makes her one of the worst cards in that deck. So, from what people don't see, this one is a promo card you can get in the Treasure Trove. But where is she at? Mulan. Mulan, Mulan. Where the hell? Oh my god, there you go. Lead by example. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character, if in a challenge, your other characters gain +1 lore. So it can be really good, but realistically, the fact that she doesn't have rush, the fact that your other cards don't quite give her rush, she is a princess, so there are some combos you can kind of do with her, but she's just such a heavy costing card. I would rather her be like maybe a 3-2 and a 2 cost or a 3 cost or something. She's just not good enough, and she is so slow. I think if you're playing princesses, playing her is kind of a mistake with Ruby. She's situational and can be good, but not quite there yet, unfortunately. And so because of that, I got to put her in a solid D tier. So that is our Ruby lineup. We got Ruby, we got Amber. At our S tier, we have Be Our Guest, Simba, Lilo, Rapunzel, Aladdin, Street Rat, Maui, Be Prepared, and Dragon's Fire. So we are going to start venturing into the blue cards next, but I need a quick break, so I'm going to pause this.
All right, I'm hydrated. And speaking of which, let's start with blues. So we're going with Ariel, starting number 1, the collector, something collector. I can't read it. This guy is a 4-drop. So it is. Item decks are cool. I actually really enjoy them, and I've been trying my best to get them to work well. And I can get them to work, but they're not that good, is the problem. Ariel is probably the exception to this, because one of the coolest combos you can definitely do with Ariel is when you play, what's card is it? Not Eye of the Fates. So you play Eye of Fates on Ariel, and then quest with Ariel, and then play another item card, and then quest with Ariel with 2, and like it can just come from like I've won a game where I had 10, I had Ariel on the field, and then I went ham, and I ended up questing 5 times, or no, I 2.5 times, 3.5 times, because I put 2 Eye of the Fates down, having a request. So it's just kind of snowballed it. And so when you see Ariel on the field, first off, you should never play Ariel unless you are going for game. That is the biggest thing I would stress to it. Like unless you're going for game next turn or something to protect her, should be an auto remove target for your opponent to try and force them to remove that card, because it is too devastating and can go unchecked, especially in high ink count turns. Then and if your opponent has cards in hand, it's going to get scary. So because of that, Ariel, she is a situational card, though. She is a C quality card, I think, overall. And she goes into some builds with blue, but you have to basically be playing with items and like a lot of items to really make her work well. Because of that, item Ariel, I think as a card that can do a lot of cool stuff, is I'm gonna put her. I'm gonna put her in C tier. I don't even like. It's not quite a filler card, but it is a good quality blue. It goes into a very specific deck that you have to play. But when she does go off, she makes the deck work, and she's basically a key component of an entire deck list. So because of that, I think I have to put her at C tier. This is Aurora. This one's actually the kind of bad Aurora. She starter deck. This is Briar Rose. When you play this, chosen character gets -2 attack. It's not that great. It's a situational card. if that. I'm probably never going to put this card in my actual deck. I will cut this out as soon as I can. It's not really even worth the filler slot. She's a 2/5, quest for 1. It's just not that special. She's in the starter deck, but in competitive play, I don't think this is the right Aurora you're going to be playing. Speaking of which, Aurora, Disarming Guardian. Was it Dreaming Guardian? Dreaming Guardian. So this one is going in a couple different blue builds. I definitely think that her in B tier is probably correct. She does give your other allies ward, and it's nice that it is just all your other characters gain ward. So the fact that you can splash this into a couple different decks is pretty helpful. I think just going into some builds, it's definitely not a requirement in any deck, but it is pretty good because of that. With that said, Aurora Regal Princess, I think again it's just going like having that to 1/2. She's a 2 cost 2/2, so she's a worse Tibbs, and she's probably going to be she's going in the same decks that you're going to play a Dreaming Guardian in. So I think low B tier, maybe high C tier. Some players aren't even playing this at all and just playing the 5 cost Aurora Guardian. So because of that, I think that just B tier is fine. It's just she has a horrible stat line. You are questing for 2 with her, but likely she's just there to play on turn 2 and then Big Aurora on turn 3. So you're not even really getting her full effects out of this card. So I think B tier is perfectly fine for her. Belle is and something engineer. Inventive engineer is a weird word on play. This card is not good in even item decks. I've cut this card completely out of item builds. The fact that she does have 2 lore, which is kind of nice, and when she quests, you get an item card for 1 less. But she's just a weaker version of her dad, and a deck that ramps up. You don't really need this at all. You can. I don't think you can even shift for Big Bell. Yeah, you can't shift with like the other Bell. And if the other card was shiftable, then she'd probably be a little bit better. But going from the inventor, I think this card will never actually see play, even in item decks. It's not that great. I've tested it. It's not. With that said, Big Bell. You will see this in some of the builds. It's not a requirement. If you're playing in like heavy blue cost stuff, then yeah, you are. But if you're playing ramp blue, but blue steel, I don't think. Well, blue steel can probably play her a lot. Okay, I'm starting to talk myself into it. So she's played in blue steel. She's played in blue red. She's definitely played in blue purple. Blue green. You don't really inking too much. You're not really comboing those. I think honestly, she's probably going in A. I think A tier for Belle. Just being able to ink extra cards, anything that's going to let you keep drawing and playing more cards, and then getting her to 10 pretty quick. If you're playing blue, you probably have some kind of ramping engine that's going to help her fill up your inkwell, and you can just drop her, protect her with Aurora, and hopefully quests for 5 at least once with her. But she has an auto remove target as well. I think you're putting her in most builds for blue. So we will slide her in, and I think she just makes A tier. I'm going to put her at the bottom of A tier at the moment, but high B or low A I think is correct for this spell. Chief Tui. So he's definitely a filler card. He's a really good filler card. Like questing for 3, he's a big stat line with a lot of healing support that you get out of the starter deck. It's pretty good. The fact he gives 3 lore to some of the weaker stuff. I saw some cool combos with just playing him and then giving Mickey Mouse, like the Detective Mickey, who is a 1/3 for Link, so that way he can crash into a Cusco. I have actually seen this card played outside of the starter deck, so I think because of that, he can definitely stay in C tier. He's not quite the best card, but he is a filler until you find something better, aka Bells and stuff like that. Donald Duck. So I actually played a player who is main decking this, and he actually topped at a local tournament. This guy's going into a few builds. He has ward himself, so he is definitely a little bit trickier to get out. At a 4/3 stat line, I kind of wish he had a little bit higher of a defense line, but because his stats are relatively weak, but he is questing for 2. Has to be attacked, which means you're probably going to get at least 2 lore out of him. So I think as a B tier card, this is something to watch out for. It is a sneaker of a card. It can win you games. So just kind of be aware about it. Donald Duck strutting his stuff is, I think, B tier for sure. Flounder. So unlike the other 1-drop 2/2s, blue does not need him. He is a filler card in blue decks because you are probably playing other better 1-cost cards. You are probably playing 1-cost stuff from other decks, but at the same time, you really don't need too many 1-cost cards. So It's kind of hard to say, but I think Flounder doesn't get the same treatment as Tibbs and Stitch because Blue doesn't really care about low cost cards. He is very likely just going to be ink if you don't open him up on turn one. So I think him at a filler line is fine. He's not quite D or F tier, but because you are going to probably play him and splash him in, but there are just better options. Grandma Tala. This is, in my opinion, S tier. It is a 2-drop 1/1. It doesn't trade with much, but it can be there to kind of pressure your opponent. You're going to want to attack into this. Maybe if you are playing a couple 1/3 cards and stuff, having Grandma is a little bit better, especially with Mickey Mouse. So that way you can trade with Tibbs, like Sergeant Tibbs, with your Big Mickey or Detective Mickey, and then finish it off with Grandma. Just having that one attack crash her into something. You want her to die, which is sad for Grandma. I don't want Grandma to die. But she does go back into your inkwell, so there's just constant value out of this. And later on, if she becomes, you can ink her if in the late game too. Like, oh, I don't need to summon you. I can just put you in my inkwell now. But early game, I love seeing this card. I want to see this in my opening hand because it's going to get me an extra round. And I'm going to be able to play on tempo and play Grandma. So yeah, I think that Grandma definitely sits in S tier. It's an auto include at 4 in basically any blue deck because I'm often ramping up my stuff. Hades. This is the deck's key source of removal. Blue. If you're playing blue and you're not playing, the only time I would say you're probably not playing 4 copies of this Hades is if you're playing Ruby along with your blue deck, and that's because they have enough removal where you don't need to just give them ink. But otherwise, this is a clean removal card. It does give your opponent an ink card, but small price to pay to out like a Maui or something or a dragon or something. Like it's got a good stat line. It quests for 2. It's a pure removal card. So I think you're probably going to play 4 copies of this in almost every Sapphire deck you're playing. The only exception to that rule, I think, is if you're playing with Ruby, where you don't need this card in Ruby. Let's go just Jasmine Disguise. She's situational. If you're playing a Princess Blue deck, then can be good because she does quest for 2, but she is a 3/3/3/3 quest for 2s. It's okay. I just don't think she's really that great. You can use her as a shift target to Jasmine, Queen of Agrabah, who says when you play this character and when she quests, you remove up to 2 damage for each of your characters. Again, it's a situational card. It is a shit. It does combo well with the other Jasmine Disguised, but you're not. It's got a heavy class. It's each of your from each of your characters, so including herself. Healing's just not that valuable right now, and I don't think we have enough benefits to start healing off your own resources. It does help, but it's not like you're getting cool effects for just healing. So because of that, I think she's just extremely situational, and there are often better cards you'll probably play. Double Blue Maleficence. So there's Sinister Visitor and the Uninvited. I like both of these cards. They are both good for their own reasons. It is basically, do I play a 4? They're great on curve. They have great stat lines. They're questing for big. I think both of these guys are probably A tier. Just you can interchange them, and I think you're going to be in a really strong spot. Just maybe you need that more mid range for that 4, or no, I want to go for the big hitter and play like Uninvited instead. So both of those cards do the exact same thing. It's just do you want to see it a turn earlier with weaker stats or a turn later? And I think both of them have good fits. You can even play both cards. Just those heavy vanilla stat lines are pretty good. And I know I've kind of given trash talk about other vanillas, but these two, because of the lore count and their stat line, for the ink and what the blue deck typically does, I think is actually appropriate, where these cards belong in A tier compared to some of the other vanilla cards. From here, we're going to talk about the item deck a lot. All right, so the items. Maurice. So Maurice, if you are playing the item deck, he is essential. And so he is not quite a filler card. C tier is. We're just gonna change. This is filler slash one deck. We'll do that. How about that? One deck type. So C tier is now one deck type slash filler cards. So Maurice is extremely good in item decks. He is the source. He makes the deck work. Otherwise, you're not playing him in whatsoever. He's not going in multiple builds. He's going into one very specific build. And Maurice being able to draw cards for playing items, being such a high defense, getting to play an item for 2 less after questing for 2. This card does so much, and I love it. So it's definitely a C quality card, and it's just it only goes in one deck. So I think give Maurice the applause. If you haven't tried item decks, like I said, they are really fun. They do work. I just don't think they're very good overall. So hopefully that changes with the next set, and we start to see some better item stuff. We did see another Gaston that's blue, which will be cool. But as it stands right now, Maurice sitting at C tier. I think that's respectable for him. Merlin, this was the first holo I got with a promo card, or in my pack for drafting. It's one of them at least. Whenever this card quests, they give the support. He gains 3 attack. So why is this card worse than Maleficent Sinister Valor? In my opinion, it just comes back to quest for 1. Even though they are the same and can be interchanged, it depending if you want that support status, and you can give this to his stats to Mickey Mouse Detective. It's I don't know. It's just something about it. I think just the feeling, the intimidation of questing for 2 with Maleficent Sinister Valor makes her more of a threat to me than a just Sinister Merlin. And the fact that you have to have another card on the field in order to really make this card work, I think makes it more situational. And so it's going to sit in D tier because of that. Detective Mickey Mouse, if you're playing blue, I am very likely putting this at a fork drop. This is probably this is the first non-removal. Okay, yeah. So like Detective Mickey, when you play this character, put the top card of your deck into an Inkwell face down, exerted. There's not really much of a downside. It's a solid stat line at 1/3. It can sing a lot of songs. It is not inkable is the only downside I have, but often you're going to play this card to get yourself an inkable card for next turn. So on turn 3, you are playing this, having an extra ink, putting you at 4 next turn, and if you play another ink then, you're going from 5. So you're going from turn 3 to 5 in terms of curve goes because you played this guy, and you maybe you didn't ink on turn 3 and you just have 3 ink for some, I don't know, whatever reason. You killed Grandma, you played this card, now you're back on curve just like you should be. So Mickey Mouse, I think it is a 4 in basically every blue deck I can imagine. Simba, this is a boss card, but he's a filler. It's a good. It's questing for 3. He's got a decent stat line. He's just vanilla. Doesn't really do much. Not much to talk about. Phil, I'm actually starting to see a little bit more play, so he can go in B tier. I don't think he's that great, but he does give your support. And again, if you're playing Phil in combination with like Mickey Mouse and Grandma, 2 of the cards that are going to need that extra attack boost, he does get a little bit better. So there is some synergy with blue cards that you're going to auto include into your deck with Phil, but he doesn't belong in every deck build, and I don't think he's necessary for a lot of them. But playing him maybe at like a two of in some of your blue decks, it might actually work out really well, especially if you're playing Grandma and Mickey Mouse. That's when I see the most value out of him overall. Robin Hood. This card has kind of dropped in some value, shockingly. It's down to $4, which isn't too horrible. I think it's pretty respectable. He isn't evasive when you need him to be, when aka on your turn. But he's draw. He's card draw. Like this guy, he's at a pretty awkward level, but and for his stat line. But he does a lot. He quests for 2. He draws you cards. I think this card can go in most blue decks, and you'll be pretty happy. I don't think he's an auto include in everything, but I do think that it's an undervalued card, sitting at about $4 at the making of this video. Scar in the Mastermind. Whenever you play this character, chosen opposing character gets -5. It can be good. It's a situational card for sure. I'm not going to put him in my main deck though. This is coming out of the starter deck almost probably like within like 2 or 3 cards. With that said, it does have its uses. It is a situational card. Maybe it is chosen as like maybe a tech card in certain builds and decks. Maybe you are just getting hounded by, I don't know, Tinkerbell, and so you want to make sure you don't get that attack value or get her attack value. The only downside I have on this guy, if the effect was permanent, it would be a staple. But because it's just on the turn it's summoned, that means you have to have something out that wouldn't already die if this card didn't come out. So I think just D tier. Tamatoa, shiny. Again, it makes the deck work. You kind of need him, but even in the item decks, I'm probably only playing 2 copies of him, unless you're just planning on inking him. He is there to close out your game, but Tamatoa shiny decks, item decks, again, we've kind of talked about, just they aren't that good. And let's just talk about all the items with this stuff real quick. a lot of the blue items aren't that great in general. So playing Tamatoa on his own, you're kind of sitting at a handicap because you're doing a lot of that stuff. So Coconut Basket, I think, is extremely situational. It does get you some healing, but it's not often good enough. Just you'll have a direct removal. Typically, people won't just deal 2 damage and leave you alone. They'll kill you off in some way. Eye of the Fates is probably the only other C tier card that is really good. That and maybe Fishborn. Uh, so I guess okay. So we'll backpedal a little bit. So some of these items, the Eye of Fates is good, not quite filler. It's just it's there for the deck. It is there for the item focused deck if you're playing Ariel and things like that. Um, Fishborn Quill does go into your princess decks with Bell and to get your big heavy ramp cards. So Fishbone Quill, any deck that has Bell will probably have Fishbone Quill. But when we look at some of these other bad items, Princess Flower should not see play. Banish this card just to heal is bad. So it is inkable. It's its saving grace, but an argument is to play it because it's a one of in an item deck, but or a one cost card for an item deck. It's not good enough to me. I don't play it in my item decks right now. From there, we got Scepter. Scepter actually sits in, I think, C tier as well. I think this Scepter is a little bit more powerful than people give credit for. Again, you need to have 2 characters ready and ready to go in order to make this card work. But because it is basically free and you're probably playing it early on, like playing Tamatoa, questing with Tamatoa, giving Mickey Mouse again the support, it makes it a lot better. I think Scepter of Arendelle is a decent item, but again, it's just for one deck focused. Where's the other? I think those are all the items right there. So okay, so let's go on to King Triton. He's just a heavy stat line, but he is extremely situational. If healing decks ever do become a thing, then I would probably consider playing him, having that 5/9 stat line. But again, he's just a vanilla. He quests for 2, and he's in your starter deck, but you're probably taking him out because just playing this guy doesn't feel good, and you're just going to quest for. He only quests for 2. It, it's not that big of a threat in most cases that late of a game. Develop your brain. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put one into the hand and one in the bottom. This is picking what you draw. So it's a one cost card. It is inkable in case you don't really need to, or don't have the resources to just get a free draw and you need to put something on the field now. Develop your brain is just letting you pick what you are going to draw. Anything that says draw should basically be an auto include in this game, I feel like, so far. If it's not Baroque, return an item card from your discard pile to your hand. It's Tamatoa does the exact same thing, and is inkable. This should never see play. So let it go. The other deck's key source of removal. This is, I think, and again, an auto include if you're playing. The only exception to that is if you're playing red, just because Dragonfire is just a better version of this card. Other than the fact that this is inkable. So let it go is just key removal. It's a song, so you can sing it. You don't have to play the ink, and it's arguably can be better than Dragon's Fire. Arguably, Dragon's Fire is better. One jump ahead. It is a song. Put the top 2 cards of your deck in inkwell face down, or put the top card of your inkwell face down. This card is Grandma. Like you want to play this with Grandma more than anything. This is going in probably most of your builds. I think B tier or A tier. Often you are playing this card with Grandma. You're playing because I'm not going to quest just because you're going to get a free ink out of Grandma. I'm like, well, fine, I'll sing with Grandma instead. So it combos really well with that. Again, it combos well with Mickey, that is probably on the field anyways, just doing nothing. So because of that, I think it's definitely an A tier card. Work together, your chosen character gains support. We're just gonna put that there in F tier. And is that all the blue? Whew, that is all of the blue, guys. Jeez. All right, we are making some serious progress. So let's just go over some of the S tiers. Still, I think is Grandma. We got Hades, we got Develop Your Brain, we got Detective Mickey, and we got Let It Go sitting in our new S tier list, along with a lot of our other cards. We are making some progress, guys. Where are we going next? We're going for Steel. Steel has a lot of great cards, but they have a lot of stinkers, so let's talk about it. All right, are we done yet? Steel. Let's see it. So first thing we're going to talk about is Aladdin, the was it what cornered swordsman. Um, Kind of out of character. Is this a Floodborn? It's a Storyborn card. Um, he is aggro, steel aggro. He is a 2 drop. He quests for 2. He's a so I think just a weaker version of Lilo. Yes, he has 2 ink, but okay. So because of that, I think he can go into some builds, but I don't think he is necessary. I don't think any actual decks. Maybe he is C tier, and I might be over evaluating this card, just because a lot of people would rather play like Prince Eric or something in the 2 drop slot. But I think that he does have a place with a lot of different builds. If you are playing aggressive, just seeing him in your opening hand can be good. And worst case, he's ink. So I think maybe low B tier, high C tier, but I'm gonna leave him at B tier for now. Beast, he is a situational card, but because of he quests for 2, he's got good stat. He comes in the late game when you need him. It's against your pesky Amber, Emerald, or Amber, Amethyst, God, Ruby, Amethyst decks. He is definitely an A card. You're not playing him as an auto include. You're probably auto including at least 2 copies of this in every deck that you play with Steel, but he's not a 4 of in any sense of the word. But he is really good. Captain Hook. This is the one, double the power, get cannons back from your graveyard or discard pile. He's going in a lot of builds. I think like B or A tier is pretty good. He's got a decent stat line too. He can just casually poke for 3, questing for 1, or poke at certain things. He can be a threat. He's not inkable. I do think that he belongs as, I think an A tier is more appropriate for him. Argument for B tier for sure, but I think that the fact that you get cannons, so you play him, you get your cannons, you remove something, and you put a big threat on the field, I think A tier is fine. Next, we got Cerberus. I know Cerberus is starting to see more play right now, which is kind of shocking, just because he's a stat line. But with that said, I think it's just because he's a filler card. I think a lot of people don't have a better option. Maybe they don't have their Hanses, they don't have their like good Tinkerbells or anything. I think Cerberus is just there to fill that slot and be an intimidating, strong force for the late game. But I don't. I think that he'll get replaced and outclassed pretty quick. Donald Duck, Bodyguard. I think this is again, it's just situational. I don't think many people are playing the Bodyguard builds or decks with these guys. And putting him at a 4, there are better. There are other bodyguards that would arguably be better in most versions of decks. So if you are playing Amber, you're playing Simba or you're playing Max. If you're playing, I don't know what other bodyguards are, but you're probably not playing this Donald Duck. Got to? No, other Captain Hook. Sorry, I skipped around a little bit. So Captain Hook again, shift 3, challenger of the gains +3. Characters who have less than 3 attack can't challenge this character. Uh, I'm sorry, I think this guy's such a situational card. I've seen some players use him, and every time I see them on the field, I kind of smile. I'm like, all right, cool, I can deal with this. Like, yeah, my weaker cards aren't doing it, but I'm probably gonna Dragon's Fire you. Like, this is just a bad drop. He's not questing for anything, so I don't have to worry about that. He's there to help kill my big cards that will probably just trade with him anyways. So Captain Hook, I think, is just a situational. I think he's overhyped. Yeah, you can bring him out turn 3, but on your turn 3, you're going to kill I don't know, a Flynn, a Donald Duck. Like, what big threats are you dealing with that you need a 5 attack character on turn 3? So because of that, I think he's in a D tier. Possibly, I would probably. I'm personally never going to play this card, but I know people have. I just think he's overhyped right now. Gantu, the probably worst legendary in the game, and he's still a $3 card. Uh, Characters with cost 2 or less can't challenge your creatures. Unless you're playing blue steel, this guy will never see play, and even if you are, he doesn't really do much to progress your store, like your game, game progression. He's a wall, but he's not even that good of a wall, so I think never see play. Unfortunately, this is probably the worst legendary in the game, which is cool, which is sucks because he's such a cool looking card, and he's like, I really like Lilo and Stitch stuff, but he's he's just not there. He didn't make the mark. Goons. So again, Steel doesn't really need a 2-2 guy. They are often playing their pirates. They're playing their Captain Hooks. They're playing their Prince Erics. Goons, because of that, is probably not being slotted in to many different decks. So obviously it's interchangeable if you're playing like Ruby and Steel together, then they're interchangeable with the Tibbs stuff. But if you're doing that, I'm probably cutting Tibbs and saying, hey, let's put in the Captain Hooks, or I'm putting in Lilos or something. Like there are better options, but I do see him. There's a spot for him. I think B is a fine spot for the just general 2/2 characters. From there, we got Hans. So Hans is going into most builds. He's definitely A tier. I don't think he's an auto include. He can be. He definitely can be an auto include. Playing him at 4, he's got good strong. He is questing for 2, and when he does quest for 2, he is pinging somebody for 1 damage. It is a problem card. You know what? I take it back. He's S tier. He's probably lower S tier, but if I had 4 copies of this, I'd probably start building Steel as well. Just because he is questing for 2, he's got a good stat line, he is pinging damage, he is inkable when you don't need him. Okay, Hans, you just make S tier for the Steel. Congrats. Hercules is your bodyguard that you'll probably play the most of, and I think this card just outclasses the Donald Duck, which is kind of why I put Donald Duck in D tier. But because of that, I think this Hercules is just overall better. So I think putting him where are we going? I think Hercules definitely goes into C tier. He is a good filler slot as you need him. I think if you're playing Amber, then you're playing other bodyguards instead, and he can be replaced. But he's got a good stat line. He's got a good number. He comes out when you need him to be. Just overall, I think him sitting at a solid C tier card is perfectly appropriate. With that said, Kristoff, just another generic 3/3/3 guy. He's a vanilla. He's kind of a filler. I think you will cut him out of the starter deck immediately. Unlike some of the other 3 guys who can quest for 2 at 3, Steel just doesn't need this, and he's not a big enough stat line to be a threat, and he's not really a big enough like lore gaining card on turn 3. He's just vanilla and doesn't do anything extra. I don't think anybody will see play with him until after they get their cards that they actually need. Kronk. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. I'm disappointed. I wanted Kronk to do something, like just something. There's too many vanilla cards right now, and I get it, it's set 1 when we gotta wait for power creep, but 6/6 is a good stat line, but Steel doesn't need the big hitters. They don't actually care about big hitting cards like this. And just seeing a lot of these vanilla big cards in Steel, I think they just thought like, oh, let's put all the strong cards in Steel, or strong muscular looking cards in Steel, because we look at like Maui, the demigod, who's an 8/8. They're both kind of doing the same thing, just 2 turns earlier. So I don't think these guys will ever see play. Maybe Blue Steel, maybe we go Blue Steel and just play all the big boys and see how it goes into a late game deck. But otherwise, unfortunately not. Lilo Galactic Hero. First off, this card is adorable. I want it to be better, but again, it's questing for 2, but it's a worse version of normal Lilo, yellow Lilo. It could have done something. She has her little gun blaster right there. Like, give us some kind of effect. Steel is already direct damage stuff. You could have done something. Made this the same version as like the gun that's later out, like the plasma blaster that we have. But instead, they chose to make it just a vanilla card, and I thought this card would be good, but her 2 health is not really good enough. She's gonna die to a Tibbs on turn 3, so she can't out trade many things, and she's going to die to most removal cards without really being the focus. She's going to sit, and I don't think she'll ever see play as she is, and that's disappointing because I love the artwork and design of that card. Mickey Mouse, it's Bodyguard. All your other Musketeers gain 1 attack. Again, it's a situational card. If you're playing the Musketeers or Mouseketeers, then hey, it might work out a little bit better for you. But I don't think there's a place for these Bodyguard cards. There might be some in the future, but as of right now, Mickey is going to sit in D tier, unfortunately. Prince Eric, you are playing this. This is definitely an S tier card for Steel. It is probably one of the best 2-drops in the game, just being able to challenge and get it. Arguably, this card does the job better than or the Facilier for purple. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to purple stuff. But I think Prince Eric is one of the best 2-drops in the game because of his intimidating presence, having a 3 health. It's going to make so many favorable trades that 2-drops just can't do when he comes out. Or it's going to stop your opponent from being so aggressive because, like, well, I don't want to be out traded with Eric and lose a bunch of stuff. because typically how it works is Eric's gonna get a favorable trade, and unless you only have like a one cost like a one health minion, you're probably gonna have to trade another 2/2 or something for it. And I'm like, well, I have to wait till you attack or you quest, otherwise I'm losing the trade and I'm losing 2 cards for the price of your one. Uh, Prince Eric just his numbers lets you play the game very optimally with steel. So I think that because of that, he is an S tier card. Simba, it's fixing your hand. I am surprised this card is not in more deck lists, but I do really like it. It should go in most builds. It's not an auto include in every single steel deck, but in my opinion, I'm playing 4 copies of this. But I know that a lot of people are kind of opting out of Baby Simba for like the future king, and I get it. If there was a big Simba, first off, why is there not a big shift Simba when we have 2 different Simbas coming up? It's kind of a missed opportunity. But Little Simba does fix up your hand. He's definitely A tier. You're probably playing 3 copies of him, maybe not 4. And I know he's not going in every deck yet, but I think people are missing out. I think this card just fixes your hand early turn 1. And when you're playing an aggro deck and you need to get to your big targets, playing this is well worth it. Especially when you're combining it with like a whole new world coming up. Other Simbas, really, really disappointing. They're both bad. Challenger, +4 for Return King. Uh, During your turn, this character gains evasive. It's not. Yeah, you can attack evasive units with them, but he's only questing for 2. He's has a high stat line or high ink cost, so you're probably never going to play him. He's in the starter deck. I've been playing with the starter decks with my fiance, and I have not been able to bring him out once because I don't have enough ink in the deck to make him work half the time. So he's, I think, a solid never see play card. Um, this other one, during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character, gain 1 lore. So you can choose to attack with this Simba to gain 1 lore and clear an opponent, or gain 2 lore just by questing with them. I, it's a situational card, but again, I don't think this will ever really see competitive play. This is in your starter deck. You'll play it in there, and then never look back once you cut it out. Aye, aye, Captain. When you have Captain characters in play, this character gains 1 lore. It's situational. If you're playing a lot of Captain Hooks and you're playing a lot of Steel cards, then yeah. But we don't have enough Captain cards yet to make this guy stand up more than a D tier. Uh, Again, it's a little bit of a filler if you are playing a lot of your Captain Hook cards. If you're playing the full set of Captain Hooks, then sure, you're playing this guy. But otherwise, you're fine. Tika, another card that can be hit by the red Moana. This one says that during your turn, whenever the character banishes another characters in a challenge, gain 2 lore. So you can quest with 2, or you can banish things with her and gain 2 lore. Same argument with all the other big steel cards. You're just not really needing those big steals. You're not doing anything to get steel control. It's just a messed up. I'm gonna try. Let's play big steel stuff and see if it works. I think that's gonna be one of my next videos. Makes big steel stuff work. But as of right now, I just don't think she's being played, and she's definitely not being played in any deck right now that I've seen. Tinkerbell, the giant fairy. This is definitely an S tier. If you can play if you can afford 4 copies, play 4 copies. She's down to $23 as of it right now. Great card. It's removal, heavy removal. It quests for 2. It's shiftable onto Little Tink, which also brings me to Tiny Tactician, who is definitely an A tier card. She's not an auto include as far as being a 4 of, but I think you're playing 2-3 copies of her and hoping to shift into with her with Big Tink. But even if you're not, you're still playing Big Tink at 4, even if you don't even play Tinkerbell whatsoever, or Tiny Tactician whatsoever. And so Tinkerbell, similar to Simba, I like her for the fact that she can just kind of fix my hand when I need to. Really great card. Yeah, we're just gonna go with that. Whole New World. This card's busted. Should not exist. This is S tier. You're playing if you are playing anything in Steel, you are playing 4 copies of this card. Forcing your opponent to discard when they don't want to and you draw 7 cards, probably when your hand is empty, is just the most broken thing in the world. This card should not exist. I think if anything's gonna hit a ban list, this card, or if Lorcana ever creates a ban list, I feel like this is probably going to be one of the first ones banned because this is just too good. Let's see. Break. It's just worse version of Beast. It is an inkable version of Beast if you can't find those cards. It's a situational card, but you should never. Beast is just a better card in every category. If you can buy the Beast, which they're not expensive, what are they? 25 cents. Then you don't need Break. Cannons. Okay, cannons is going S or A, S or A, for sure. Um, the contemplation of not putting an S tier is because some people will opt out of cannons and play Smash instead, or cut cannons altogether. The fact because it's not inkable. I'm gonna put it in S tier myself because I think it is an auto include. I'd rather play cannons than Smash personally, but you're often playing both of those cards, especially with just having being not able to side deck stuff out yet. I think when siding becomes a thing, you will probably interchange cannons and Smash quite a bit. But cannons does have some recursions to it. You can get more of them back if you are playing this Captain Hook, and it's I think a four of in any deck for steel for sure. From there, we got Grab Your Swords, another 4 of. Steel definitely is probably one of our most dominating colors. We're sitting at 3, 4, 5, 6 cards that are auto includes. And 4 Grab Your Swords, easy include. Just it's your board wipe. It's the second best board wipe in the game other than Be Prepared, but you're probably going to be able to sing this quite well. So, yeah, Be Prepared, phenomenal for that. I don't think anybody can argue that that card does not belong in S tier. Ransack. So this card is interesting. So in contrary to me saying, "Hey, this card fixes your hand, draw a card, discard cards," it just lets me draw. This card doesn't actually give you anything. You are going -1 for playing this card. You are then drawing 2 cards and then discarding 2 cards. So you're actively going negative playing this card. Because of that, I think it's just not worth until we get more graveyard effects. I think Ransack should not see play whatsoever. It can help you dig deeper into getting some combo pieces if you are playing some kind of combo focused deck. Maybe you are playing blue steel and focused on items trying to get to like Tamatoa, but otherwise you are basically going negative to dig deeper into your deck, and I don't think it should see play. Smash. This is again, I think it's interchangeable with cannons versus Smash. With that said, I think Smash is slightly lower because often people are playing Smash. It is such a good utility card because it is inkable, but I see people ink this card a lot more than I see it used against me. And for that reason, I'm putting it at A tier. I think that it can be interchanged with cannons as far as putting 4 cannons for a Smash, but the actual effect of Smash is often just neglected, and you're playing it as ink. So because of that, I got put it in A tier. Beast Mirrors actually surprised me. If you're not playing the Whole New Worlds, or you're poor like me and you don't have Whole New Worlds, then this card is your draw card. So it is really good. I like it a lot. I think it goes in some of the builds. I think it's sitting at a solid B tier card. It's a little bit of an overlooked, I think, at times, just because it's just one of those bad items. And yeah, so but we'll put it at B tier because it does go in a couple different builds, especially item decks. But even in non-item decks, and you're playing steel or aggro or anything, you're just playing a lot of low-cost stuff. Sometimes you just need a draw, and this card will get you there. Frying Pan, legitimately the worst card in the game. It is never going to see play. It is the I will remove it from my booster deck and put in a random green card that I found in my booster pack. This card is horrible. Banish this item. Chosen character can't challenge during their next turn for a 2 cost. Wow. Compare this to Cannon. Compare this to Smash. Smash at least kills the character in most cases. Smash is still inkable. This just says your opponent can't quest with it. They can still challenge, or can't challenge during the next turn. No, sorry, chosen character can't challenge during the next turn, so they can still quest. Um, yeah, this is bad. F tier, bottom of F tier, probably the worst card they printed. Musketeer Tabard, all for one and one for all. Whenever one of your characters is with Bodyguard is banished, you may draw a card. I think there is an argument that this card could be splashed in with Amber Steel, and if you are playing the Musketeers, then obviously it's good. I think putting this card with the D tier, just because card draw is card draw, and if you are playing a heavy Bodyguard deck, then getting some replacements, I think is totally fine. Blaster. This card is situational, but I think it's not that bad. So I'm gonna put it pretty high D tier, I think. Just because with Blaster, just dealing 1 damage for 2 ink, sometimes you're just going to run out of cards and you just need to ping stuff. It's pretty good. I played this with a blue steel item deck and I liked it a lot. It's not the best thing in the rare. It's not the best rare, but it's still a really good one to find. And I think you can splash 2 copies of this into an item deck and it'll find success. And wow, all right, we are done with steel. Joining us with the most amount of cards so far in S tier, we got Hans, we got Prince Eric. Where's actually? Am I missing somebody? I feel like where's I don't know where Captain Hook. Where's the 1-drop Captain Hook? Did I accidentally cut him out of this thing? Um, okay, well let's. I don't even remember if I talked about him or not, and I don't see him in here. I thought I uploaded all the pictures. Um, But let's talk about Captain Hook, the 1-drop. What's his name exactly? Right. Yeah, Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist. I think that he is also an S tier card too, which is disappointing. I want to make sure I splash him in there. But Forceful Duelist is a really good card. My dogs are barking at me now. Forceful Duelist is probably a S tier card, just because he is again one of the better 1-drops. He does favorable trades. He's gonna trade Tibbs most likely. He's because you're gonna be attacking with him. But overall, I think he just is an auto include in any steel deck. Better than Tibbs, better than Stitch. So I think either high A tier or S tier as well is where I would put Captain Hook Forceful Duelist. I don't know where his picture is at. I must have accidentally deleted it or something, but he belongs in S tier for sure. All right, so on to purple. Purple has a lot of really good cards, but are they all S tier? Well, no. And Anna's going to be one of our perfect examples of our S tier stuff. Let's go over this. Anna, when you play this character, if you have a character named Elsa, choose an opposing character. That chosen character can't ready at the start of their turn. So she's basically Elsa's backup to freeze cards. She is so situational. Maybe if you're playing Ruby Amethyst and doing the shenanigans with Queen Elsa, the rider, maybe you can get something going on with her. But no, just no. She's not even a decent stat line. She's gonna quest for 2, but for 4 ink, no, thank you. Archimedes, I think as with a lot of the other ones with like Tibbs and stuff, I think Archimedes sticks in A tier. You're probably playing this a little bit more than Olaf personally for your 1-drop. But I think just having Stitch, Archimedes, and Tibbs, I think those 3 colors are most likely to play the 2/2s out of any of the other deck types. So I think that this is all 3 of them sitting in A tier together makes sense. Sorry Flounder and sorry Goons, but you guys just get outclassed by other cards in your deck. From there, we got Dr. Facilier. So this card is phenomenal. I like it a lot, but he is situational. He's not going in every deck. If you're playing a little bit more of an aggro focus, this card was a staple in the early Ruby Amethyst decks, but a lot of people have opted in now to cutting him out completely. I think he goes into some builds. I like this card a lot. I love the effect, and I love comboing it with rush cards. So if you're playing like a rush focused decks and you want that kind of removal, then this guy is a great include. He does quest for 3. He's got a decent stat line. He can be shifted at turn 5 to so just a surprise card and really go in. Uh, but he's not used for every deck type, and so because of that, I'm going to put him in B tier. With that said, the better Dr. Facilier is the Charlatan version, the 04 version that gains 2 Challenger. So the fact that this guy's just coming out on turn 2 is really good, but I think he's going in the same deck builds as the Dr. Facilier 7-drop. He's just he doesn't really trade with many cards. He's kind of an awkward number, and if I'm comparing this to like Prince Eric, who's a 1/3, this guy doesn't beat him even when he's challenging Prince Eric, but Prince Eric can deal massive damage to him, and I don't know, it just the stat lines don't mesh well, and having a 0 attack when you are hit, like having that big defense is nice, but not dealing anything back in return just means that your opponent can get some really favorable trades after you manage to out one of their cards. So for that, I think he's just solid in B tier. This Dr. Facilier, whenever you play a song, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one on the top of the deck and one on the bottom. It's kind of nice to be able to pick what you want to draw, but with that said, it's never going to see play. I think if you're playing Dr. Facilier, you're playing Charlatan, it's just a lot better. You're not playing that many songs in general, like in most decks, to really be able to get use out of his effects. He is nice as a 2/4, but it's not good enough in my opinion. Elsa, Queen Regent, just another 4-drop 4/4. Again, this is probably more of a filler card than anything. You can play her with instead just of the other Elsa to get out Big Elsa, but with her being such a just a vanilla card, doesn't quest for much, has a decent stat line for 4. We've talked about these kind of cards. I just don't think they're that great. I think C is probably too generous actually. Let's put her in D tier. This Elsa, though, Snow Queen, lets you exert it. This card is definitely going in B tier. I don't think it's anywhere close to going into A or S tier, just because you don't need this card in your deck. It does help out when you have your alliance with like Ruby Amethyst, but it's not like you're not going to play this in other than Ruby Amethyst decks. I think just you don't need to exert too many things extra. So I think just B tier is totally good. And with that, Spirit of Winter, I'm putting her in A tier. Um, I've said it several times. I do not think that I think this Elsa card is completely overrated. It is strong as hell when it comes out late game. When you're in those top deck wars, then yes, this card is phenomenal. I don't want to see this card early. I really want to just top deck this card, and when me and my opponent are just one-on-one cards, and that is typically when this card excels better than most others. But it's not a four of in every deck. It's just not. So I think A tier is going. She's going to go in most purple decks, but not all. And even if you're playing her in all of your purple decks, you're probably not needing 4 copies of her. Float Sam. Float Sam's cool, but he's a filler. There are better rush targets, aka Rafiki, aka Zeus, but we'll talk about those later on. I don't think his benefit with Jet Sam is makes him any extra special. The fact he's not inkable at a 5-drop, he has a weak stat line. His 2 Lord doesn't actually do anything because you're often just rushing and crashing into something and dying anyways. So I think he's just such a situational card that is not necessary. Um, Hidden Wonders Jafar. I'm sorry, Jafar, Keeper of Secrets. I like him. He's probably more situational, but I think he's a one of in like playing in certain things. I do see him quite a bit, but usually just as a 1 or 2 copies of. I think he is a solid C tier card. He's going to be splashed into a couple decks here or there, but you're not playing 3, 4 copies of him. You're often just he's a tech choice card. Maybe that's what C should be, tech choice. Jafar, Wicked Sorcerer, Challenger +3. Uh, Again, I think he's a tech choice. So him kind of being able to attack into this Jafar is going to survive against the Mad Hatters. He's going to survive against Tinkerbell attacking into it. Like he is a pretty solid card overall. It's just with that said, they Amethyst has the most value at a low deck cost, and there are better options to place into this, especially when you're comboing out other cards. Amethyst is there for draw power and to play some rushes, I think, and so you have a little bit of removal and you have a draw power. That is what Amethyst excels at. Having this guy Challenger, I think, is just slow. He does have a good stat line and he can out a lot of big threats, but I don't think he belongs in every deck. Jet Sam, he's D. Again, we kind of just talked about it. Same thing with Float Sam. They can hang out together here. Magic Brooms. This is going in most builds. I think Magic Broom is definitely there's a lot of utility to this card, and I think it is there to help prevent deckouts, which is a big threat when you're playing against Steel, or playing against in the mirror match. If you're playing against Ruby Amethyst Mirror, then you need this guy to just bounce each other so you don't deck out. But more importantly, when you are comboing it with like Mickey Mouse and stuff, it can be really good just as a good tempo, strong card to play. It's a 2/2, and so on turn 2, which we've kind of discussed overall isn't that great, but the fact that you can bounce a card back from your graveyard to your deck is really good, and when comboed with Mickey Mouse in more of the mid game, late game, it can be really strong. Let's talk about Maleficence. Maleficent, the 1 cost Biter of Time or whatever it is, I think she is a C tier card. You're only playing this card in Amber Purple, and even then, people are starting to opt out of her and just play other cards instead. Otherwise, like you're only playing her in that one deck. I don't think Ruby Amethyst. I can't. Why is that word so hard to me for me to say? Ruby Amethyst, you're not playing her. Purple Blue, you're probably not playing her because you're not needing the aggro. Maybe if you're playing Steel, you're probably playing. You might play her, but at that same time, if I'm playing Steel, I'm probably rather have Captain Hooks and stuff in my hand. So like you don't have to. She is there for only aggro, and you could probably throw her in with green as well. But even then, I don't think I really want to see her in my green deck because I want like I don't know. I think you can play her in one or two decks, but I think C is a solid answer for her. You have to play aggro with her in order to work. However, Maleficent, the sorceress, this is easy S tier. She's card draw. She replaces herself. It's you're playing for. You should always play 4 copies of this card in any purple. And if you're splashing in purple, you're playing 4 copies of this. And we might as well talk about it. Let's go to friends on the other side, who is also a 4 of these two cards together. They work really well. They're both threes. They can be sung together. They're both drawing. These two cards are easy S tier for purple. Marshmallow. When this character is banished in a challenge, you may return this card to your hand. Um, you're he's a 5/5. You're probably not going to banish this with a challenge. You're going to do it with some kind of card effect. I don't know the ruling with Cusco in this card. Like if this card runs into Cusco, is Cusco's effect is the one doing the banishing, not the challenge. So I don't think it goes to your hand. Because of some weird rulings and wordings, I don't think this card's really that good, and it's not inkable at all. So I don't think I'll ever see play. Mickey Mouse. I think I'm gonna stick it with Brooms in A tier. It's going into most builds. Actually, you know what? I think it's. I think Brooms is more important than Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is often a 2 or 3 copies of in your deck, and you're gonna play this a little bit more mid to late game. So you're gonna put it back into your deck. It's just not. I don't think it has the same oomph as having a Brooms out, and because of that, I think just sitting him in B tier is appropriate for sure. Olaf. Olaf can go with the other 1 drops. I think having Olaf with is the only 1/3 because of how purple kind of works as a control deck. Olaf does sit very well. There are other cards that can give him extra attack in other builds. So just depending on what you're playing, you may sub Archimedes out for Olaf. So we'll put these guys together. I think they just hang out really well. He is a good 1 drop. Probably one of the only 1/3s that I actually considered playing in my deck. We are on to Pascal. Pascal has a very, very specific job. He's going in some builds, he's playing in aggro. So if you're playing Amber, if you're playing Green, you're probably playing Pascal, just getting the evasive and just kind of chipping away at this with this little guy. He's totally cool. Good card overall, and I think a solid A or B tier is pretty solid for him. Rafiki, I think you're playing him in most purple decks. I think you're playing at least 2 or 3 copies of. Zeus, there is the argument of him versus Zeus, who is better. They're both great cards in different situations, but I think Rafiki overall is a perfect 3 drop A tier card in my opinion. Sven, you're never seen play. Sorry, buddy. You're cute, but you're just again vanilla, late game vanilla that doesn't do anything. Queen is easy. I'm losing my voice. 1 second. All right, so yeah, Queen. Sorry, I had to pause. Queen is an auto include, I think, in almost every purple deck. If I'm playing Ruby Amber, Sapphire, I want to draw. She's just great late game card. She's great in blue. She's great in green. She's great in red. Even yellow, I'm probably playing 4 copies of her just because having that draw power and having her as a constant field presence threat, and where the people might focus, oh crap, if I keep her on the field, he's going to keep drawing but these other guys are questing for 2. What decision do I need to make? What's better right now? And I think Queen is just such a threat of a card. I think that she can go into any deck pretty and you'll be happy when you see her overall. So I think the Queen is definitely a S tier card for sure. There's I think it goes into any deck. From there, we got Wardrobe. This is not going to see play. We're just going to put that there. Tinkerbell, Evasive. This card is just is basically Goofy. So let's. I want to compare this card directly to Goofy and where we kind of put it. We put Goofy, I think, in D tier. No, we put him in C tier. I don't know. We put him in B. Okay. So why is Tinkerbell worse than Goofy? Goofy is inkable. Tinkerbell is not. Goofy has a higher stat defense line where compared to it. So this card is just a worse version. Your character's name Peter Pan gained Challenger +1. Eh? It's like how many times do you have Peter Pan on the field with her? And there's not even a good Peter Pan right now, anyways. So she doesn't do the job of a lot of the other evasive cards, even compared to like Pongo and things like that. Sure, she's evasive and she quests for 2. That's not good enough, and I don't think she'll ever see play until we get a good Peter Pan card where it makes her effect more relevant. Ursula. So, where people are all in on Elsa, I swear on Ursula. I think Ursula is 100% a better card than Elsa, and I'm putting her in S tier. She is draw power. She is anti aggro in the sense of your opponent's losing a lore. She quests for 3, and unless they have Dragonspire, they're not removing this card by traditional means. So, like, this card is a threat when it hits the field. It replaces itself, and if you're playing other Amber cards, chances are you have more lore to do more stuff to help protect or do other stuff, like, or to help deal with other problems on the board when you play this card. So sitting at a 7 cost is really good. It's just such a huge stat line for 7. She does everything that a card would want to be, and it blows my mind that this card is only $15 compared to Elsa, who's 40. Like that's insane. She is an S tier card. The only thing the argument that I would say that makes her less of an S tier card, I think, is the fact that you don't really need 4 copies of her, and sometimes don't really want 4 copies of her because she can be a dead draw if you get her early enough. But hopefully you don't mulligan her. I There are reasons like I play a lot. I play her a lot. I like having her at 4. I think I might be the crazy one here, but hey, this is my list. I'm putting Ursula at S tier. She's $15 at the moment of this video. I can't. That's shocking to me. I think she is better than Elsa, but that's my opinion. We'll go from there. From there, Yzma. This is the promo card that is at like all the promos right now going on in Lorcana. I'm getting this card like nearly every week in Hollow. Uh, I'm just not putting her in my list. She's gonna sit back. Whenever this card it quests, look at the top card of your deck, put it in either top or bottom. Like the effect itself is fine, but again, it's just a 2 cost 2/2, and only questing for 1. It's got to do more than just let me pick my draw. So I don't think I'll ever put this into my deck. Zeus, he kind of hangs out right there with Rafiki. Um, I don't think one is completely better than the other. They are both situational and they're both great to come out when they need to come out. So I think we'll just put it there. Befuddle, I think goes in B tier. It's not because it goes in some decks. I think it's just because it's usually a one. Some players will play 4 copies of this, but I think most players are playing 2 copies of it, and often at times it'll probably end up as ink. It is a good anti-aggro card. It is actually a better card late game for being a one-drop than it is early game because sometimes you just need to bounce problematic cards that you don't have an out for. So I like seeing this card late game, and I hate drawing it early on. From there, we got Freeze. Exert a chosen opponent character. It's not inkable. This is going straight to F tier. This is one of the worst purple. It's probably the worst purple card in my opinion. Reflection. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Put them back in order in any way you want. It is a 1-cost song. So that's interesting. You can play this with Olaf if you wanted. It is definitely like you don't really need that much deck stacking, and arguably we're going to see a card that just does it better. So because of that, you shouldn't really be playing this card, and it's going to go in F tier. Not that bad of an F tier card, but you should never really play this. Magic Mirror. This is an it's the only thing that's stopping it from being an S tier card is the fact that it's an item. It's not inkable, and you're probably not playing 4 copies of this in your deck. I do see people playing 4 copies of this. I think that's wrong. I don't want to see this Magic Mirror that much. I will probably hard mulligan for it, or if you are playing a lot of things that are going to help you stack your deck, then getting to see this is really nice. But otherwise, I don't think it's a 4 cost. It doesn't need to be a 4 of in any deck. Ursula's Collagen, same logic, same reasoning. It's a phenomenal card. I love this card a lot, like a lot more than I thought I would. But being able to pick what you're drawing next turn, or even that same turn, is really strong, and it sits right there with Magic Mirror. Those 2 cards are probably the best item cards in the game right now. Period. And then we got Magic, the White Rabbit's Watch. I think this goes in B tier. It is good in a lot of different builds. It is nice to give your Aladdin's Rush. It is great in Ruby Amethyst, but in even in some green decks too. But it's not good enough, in my opinion, to be in every auto include. Even if in my purple blue deck with the items, I wasn't including it because it didn't need. I just didn't need that rush and those outs. So it is extra removal. Treat this card as a removal card because it just automatically gives somebody rush basically for one every turn. And that is our Amethyst list. So let's take a look. Not as many S tier cards as I thought it would be actually, but we got Maleficent, Friends on the Other Side, the Queen, and Ursula sitting all at S tier. Auto includes in any deck, any purple deck. Ursula, again, arguably could be A tier, but I do play 4 copies of her, and I think I'm right with that combo. That's just my opinion, though. All right, now we are on green. Green has become my favorite color. When I first started playing this game, I thought green was horrible, and I really didn't like it whatsoever. But as I play green more and more and more, it does everything I wanted to. I got a little bit. I got my mid range. I got some aggro. I do have control aspects. Like there's just so many good green cards. But oh boy, are there stinkers. So let's talk about Aladdin, the awarding version of him. Let me pull. Yeah, Prince Ali. So this card with ward, again, it's a 2/2, just can't be removed, so it can't be cannoned. Basically, this card says don't cannon me, but you can do grab your swords, um, and you can Tinkerbell me, and there's other ways to deal with him. But realistically, this guy's dying to Tibbs, so I don't play this at all. When we get bigger, better Aladdins, then sure, but I don't even play this in my red green deck where I have the Outlaw Captain. It's just there are better 2 cost options. Beasts, White Wolfsbane. 4/4 card, 5 ink to play, quest for 2, but it's a rush. Um, what makes this card cool is the fact that when you play this card, anybody who is damaged on your opponent's, excuse me, gosh, anybody who's on your opponent's side of the field damage does automatically exert, um, and then you can rush them down and fight them. It's an extremely situational legendary. It's not the worst legendary, and I've tried playing around with it, but I just don't think it's worth playing in a lot of cards. It's a tech choice if you are playing other cards that will just ping for damage. So maybe in Steel it's a little bit better, and you can find that niche. But otherwise, if you're let's say you are playing Steel and you say grab your swords. If grab your swords doesn't kill it and you drop this, that means you probably spent 10 ink unless you sang with somebody just for this guy to go in, and then chances are this thing's going to die on top of to deal that extra 2 damage that it might need to kill something. So because of that, I think Beast is definitely a situational card. I think it's pretty clean D. Cheshire Cat is a great 3-drop, but it is not always good to see. I often ink this one a lot, just because the fact that I can't be aggressive with him whatsoever is pretty bad. Sometimes I need to just deal 1 damage and I have Cheshire out, and I'm like, crap, I literally can't do anything. I just quest with Cheshire, and you're either going to attack this to out whatever you need to out or to remove something on your field, or I'm just going to keep questing for 2. But it is not. I don't think it's in a. It needs to be in every deck for green. Um, he's a very situational card. He is pretty good, but I think it's a B quality card. Cruella de Vil, I'm pretty disappointed with this card. It's a 1/3, horrible stat line. When this character is challenged, you may return the chosen character to their player's hand. When this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to their hand. So we have a lot of bouncing effects with green, and nothing. We don't have too many quote unquote rally cry effects that we'll really get to utilize with this. So bouncing something to their hand, either your opponent's hand, so that way it does give you a little bit of a removal, or bouncing something to your own hand, so that way you can play it again to get your own effects off. It's just not that good, and I think again she is very situational. I think this card will be better down the road, but until then, I think she can sit at a solid D tier. Which are you missing again too? I don't think I have all my cards as labeled as A well, but Corella is a D tier card. Um, oh, I'm missing Duke as well. Am I missing Flynn? No, okay, wait. Okay, so Duke, you can hang out with your other A tier 2/2 guys. Just playing in green, I think you're fine. You're probably going to splash Duke in a little bit. Flynn, you are definitely a. I think this is an A tier card. I'm probably playing Flynn in any green builds that I ever will have, just because with Flynn itself, he is his stat line's horrible for being a two cost, but the fact that he's two cost ink, and people are actively afraid to attack with him in the early game, and in the late game he becomes a lot less of a threat. But then it's when you start inking him because people are low on cards, or if the people really need their card in hand, then they may just let him slide for a few rounds until they know they can have something they can actually discard or use their entire hand. So I think 4 of for Flynn is really strong, and I'm pretty happy with him in A tier. Let's see, Reckless. This is which one is this one? Let me go because my Vicious Betrayal. Chosen character gets +2 attack. If it's a villain, gets +3. No. I mean, look. So here's the only argument I can see for possibly being D tier. You have a lot of 2/4s. You have Cheshire Cats. You have some things that might just need those extra attack boosts, and the fact that it is inkable makes it a little bit more of a situational. With that said, it should not be played. There are better options, and most other colors will kind of combo it. So I think that is Vicious Betrayal can sit calmly at an F tier. Dr. Facilier's cards. Is this? Yeah, you pay one less for the next action you play. F. Yeah, it's a cool item. There's not enough good actions yet that will mean I want to play a lot of these action cards. And let's just talk about some of the action cards like Do It Again, Mother Knows Best, which is a song. Stampede is horrible. Like Steal from the Rich. Like there's a lot of action cards, and I know a lot of the cards coming up are gonna be like, oh, well, you get to play extra actions. Or bounce cards get more actions, and the genies get more use your action cards. There's not that many good ones right now, and I think it's just because it's set one and a lot of these are fillers. I think a lot of these cards will probably be better later on, but as of now, it's definitely staying in an F tier. You shouldn't be focusing your whole decks on playing actions because they are one-time uses and often do not press your field advantage. Stolen Scimitar, I think it's definitely a situational card. Again, I would consider this. I didn't cut this out right away because I had Cheshire Cats, and again, I liked having Cheshire Cats at least having one damage sometimes. So it can be helpful. You are playing a lot of really weak statted characters of 4 ofs in green, so we'll get into why this card's a little bit better with like Cusco and Mad Hatter. But otherwise, it's a situational card. Let's go to Genie on the job. So this card right now, it has evasive. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to the hand. It is a 6 cost. It is really strong. It's got a good bouncing effect. It again, it's just the bouncing stuff. It's helpful. The only really clean green removal that you have if you're not playing Ruby. So I think that this guy is a C tier card. It can be splashed in when you need it for that deck removal. He's sitting at about $4 right now, which I think is appropriate. But I don't think this Genie card is that great, purely because he's such a high cost, and he's just kind of a when it comes to questing, he's basically again just Tinkerbell, or he's Pongo, or he's Tigger. There's just you get the removal out of him, but the fact that he's not inkable, like green is ink hungry until you get to 5, and then you have to splash in an extra one. So seeing this guy in your opening hand can be a death sentence to green players. With that said, other Genie, Powers Unleashed. Evasive as well. He does quest for 3. Whenever this character quests, you may play an action card with a 5 or less for free. Really powerful if I had extra good actions, and we don't. So again, I think he is just an extremely situational card. I don't think we found a spot for him yet. Genie, the impressive something, the ever impressive. He is a 2/3 vanilla. I think that hanging out with Donald Duck here, and I think was it C tier, where I have Donald. Yep, Donald I have in C tier. I think that's totally appropriate. It does get the shift bonus if you are playing that Genie, so it might become a little bit more valuable in that case. But otherwise, he's just a vanilla card that doesn't really do anything to push your advantage. So again, he's just a D or a B tier, C tier, C tier. Sorry, Hans. This is the rare that has been eluding me. I cannot find these guys. I think that he is a 4 of though. Possibly maybe A tier. The reason that I am playing, like, if I'm playing green, I'm often playing a little bit more aggressive mid range, and this guy's stat lines just work out well. He has a 4 cost, inkable, 3/3 who quests for 3. Um, what makes this guy better than the other three, like if a 3 cost 3/3 guy who quests for 2, the fact is that he can quest for the 3 ink. The 3 ink is much more important with this guy being at a 4 cost, and he's just better value than a lot of the cards that are 3 cost, 3/3s, 2 lore. And playing this guy versus like with Mad Hatters, it does come up having that extra ink from this one card specifically, being able to have quested with him once versus the Pongos and everything else. It does come up quite a bit, and you should be including 4 copies of him. He's actually the only 4 copies of auto includes that I have not gotten because I can't find this card. I only have 2 of them in my actual deck right now, but I'm working to get 4. From there, Horus is a 3 cost 4/3. I actually like him a lot, but he is a filler card. Horus was a great card for me to help fight other green decks because he does out Mad Hatter without dying. He can kill Cusco. Just having the 4 stats, the 4 attack power and a 3 defense is good for vanilla. This is probably the best vanilla in the game, other than the like standard 2/2s. Because of that, I think he is. I say that because I have mini right here. And Aurora does shift. Like I just think he's one of the better just drops, but he is just a filler slot ultimately. Um, I wouldn't also like sleep on this guy too much, but there are other cards you will probably cut from your deck if you have the starter deck before you cut out Horus, just because of how good his stat line really is and how many things he can out without dying. Iago, chosen character gains reckless. It's a situational card, but I again, and it does, if you can slow play your opponent into forcing them to attack your cards, to attack your Mad Hatters and attack your Cuscos or Cheshire Cats and stuff like that, then sure. But honestly, I don't even like him in D tier. I think I'm just throwing him in F. I would never play this card as of right now until I get bigger cards that will give me better benefits when they're attacked. I don't think Iago has a place yet. Jasper, a lot of people like Jasper. I'm not a fan personally, but I do see him in a lot of deck lists, so I am going to put him in a B tier. Just because he can force your opponent into stopping them from questing, so it does help prevent some aggro targets, and so just really strong defense line, decent stats overall. He only quests for 1, but he's really there to help stop other people from questing in general and having to deal with your board. So because of that, Jasper, you can sit at B tier. John Silver. I'm mad at myself. This card was $10 like literally 2 weeks ago. He's up to $22. I don't think he is worth that kind of money, but he is really good. He is gonna probably get splashed. Oop, that's not it. Yeah, he is probably gonna be splashed in a couple different decks, but he's not an auto include um, in many things. He's really just got some hype right now, but I think that's gonna die down. Uh, as of now, I think just B tier. He does help prevent again aggro. It does force your opponent into dealing with a problem. So John Silver, welcome to the team, but I kind of wish you were $10 again. I'm gonna go with B tier. Let's see. The Beast is mine. This card right here is chosen character gains reckless, and that's an F. 3 costs for a one-time action just to make opponent basically have to attack me. It's not that great at all. This is probably arguably one like bottom 3 cards in the game. Jumba, he's a filler. He does a job. He is just a big card with who quests for 2. 4/5 stat line. I actually played him within my deck of my locals because I didn't have John Silver, and he did fine. He's a good little guy. I'm happy with him. Cusco, if you're playing green, you're playing 4 copies. He is S tier 100%. There is no reason to not play this card at 4. Where are you at? Lady Tremaine. Whenever you play this card, you may return an action card from your discard pile to your hand. Again, we don't have that many good action cards. I think she is situational. She is good tempo, but she's not really. What is she? She quests for 1. Really bad stat line. She's not inkable. I think it's situational. I just don't know of that many. Until we get better action cards, I just don't think it's worth it. Mad Hatter, again, 4 of. He quests for 3, he's got a good stat line, and he lets you draw very often because your opponent has to hit him to, or in most cases, will have to hit him to out him. Or they're going to go -1 anyways by playing Dragon's Fire or something that has to hit and remove it. So he is just a auto target for any character. If you see this card on the field, you need to kill it on like within a turn because just you can't let us quest for 6. We got Meg. So Megara is pretty good. She's starting to see a little bit more play now. I think with that we can put her splash her into B tier. Just the fact that you're buffing on summon and it's not a support effect, you were just this is the card that you're often going to bounce just with some of your other effects, just to basically make more favorable trades with Cheshire Cats or Tibbs or whatever you got or Duke. So Meg is definitely, I think, a B tier card. It's kind of nice to see her. I think that the decks, some of the builds need her, but other ones you don't quite. B tier is just totally fine for Meg, I think. Mickey Mouse, the Artful Rogue. This is such a cool looking card, but I don't think it's that good. Whenever you play an action chosen opposing character can't quest during their turn, it's you can combo it with like Mickey Mouse the boat guy and stuff like that, but overall this just isn't that good of a card. And it's kind of sad because it's got the enchanted version, which looks awesome, but I think it's just such a situational card, and there's not many good green Mickeys to play because we're going to talk about Boat Mickey, who's also another filler card. Uh, but just to be able to stop your opponent from questing whenever you play an action chosen opposing character can't quest, like it's too high of a cost. It's not inkable. It's such a situational card that's just not inkable, and that's what holds this card back. Mother Grothel. So this is my cheap man, poor man replacement for John Silver at the moment, just because she basically does the exact same thing, but while this character is exerted, opposing character can't quest. She is inkable. She is a 6-drop. Yeah, like she is really good. She is just as good as John Silver, and she is as of right now $20 cheaper. So I'm gonna go and focus on Mother Grothels while everyone's spending $20 on John Silver because they basically do the exact same thing, just a little bit different stat lineup. But honestly, the 3/6 is arguably better than the 5/5. Peter Pan was a great filler card. He can go in there. He is just a. There's some Tinkerbell support you can get with him, but he's just an evasive guy who questing for 1. The 3 attack is meaningless because again you're not attacking with him. He's fine. Maybe C tier, low C, high D tier card. Tamatoa, the dirt and drab little crab. He's cute. I like him, but no, you shouldn't play this card. Tinkerbell. So this is the best Tinkerbell in the game, other than Steel. I think that in most purple builds, you're probably playing her. So I think A tier is perfectly fine for Tinkerbell. Where are we at? Do it again. Return an action card. Again, we don't have that many good action cards. It's just sitting back. Mother Knows Best is a filler card for sure. If you, depending on the deck you're playing, you may need the extra removal. So maybe some builds can play this a little bit more efficiently than others. But I think that a lot. If you're playing blue, you're probably going to play Let It Goes and Hades. If you're playing red, you're playing Dragon's Fire. If you're playing purple, you're playing like Rafiki and Zeus. So like there are just better options. So I think it's correct. Say C tier. Stampede is, in my opinion, the second worst card in the game, right underneath the frying pan, and it just comes down to deals to it's a worse version of cannons. It is not inkable. Where this card it's cannons with a cost, and it's not as again not inkable. The card has to be damaged already for me to play this card. Like green doesn't give me any like just random splash damage cards. So I'm not a fan of it. So Stampede, you're probably the second worst card in the game. Steal from the Rich is extremely situational. Multi-man matches are great with this, but it can be really good if you are playing a heavy evasive unit. This is how I started playing Lorcana at my locals, where I'd throw down 3-4 evasive units and just steal a bunch of lore against aggressive decks. And it's cool. It's fun to resolve, but it is often a dead draw in your hand. You're probably only playing 2 copies in a deck, even if you are playing with this card. And finally, Sun and Chill. Each opponent chooses and discards a card. It is a song, but it is essentially your mind. This is how I look at this card. I am playing this card, costing me 2 ink or costing me an action for singing it, just so you can discard an extra card. I'm not gaining anything. It is a net zero cost. If anything, I lost out on being able to sing or playing 2 ink this turn. So I don't think this card will ever see play as it stands right now. And guys, we did it. Whew. That is all the cards ranked. And oh man, my mouth is. I need some water. Um, this is. I think this is a pretty definitive list. I don't think there's a few cards again that I think I could probably interchange a little bit by looking up and down, but I think this is just a really good list, and hopefully a lot of these explanations on some of these cards have kind of either piqued an interest. Are there any cards that you feel like are shocking that you thought are that good, or are there cards that you am I just completely overlooking of like why this card should be a lot better? I know my list and rules were kind of a little bit everywhere, but I think I put it and made a good description of each of them, and I'm pretty happy with how this list turned out. There is a lot of cards here to talk about. This was just set one. Hopefully, we'll get another good list for set two. I want to give a shout out to Zyland Keen. He is the one who uploaded all these cards because it took me forever to try and find individual JPEGs, and then I had to try and compress them. And this guy did all the work for me. So Zyland Keen, thank you so much for uploading all this and using this template. I really appreciate it. Guys, if you like this, I appreciate anything kind of like and support. This video is going to take me a while to edit and clean up, and it took me 2 nights of recording because I lost audio a few times for some reason. So if you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you want to see more, check us out. I plan on doing a lot more Lorcana content. I like doing a little bit of everything. I'm not just really one channel. I'm just a gamer that likes to play a bunch of different stuff. So hopefully you find me entertaining, or you like my voice, or maybe you just think I'm a nerd. I don't care. But like and subscribe. Do all the YouTube stuff. Take care, y'all.